Gary, can you do the roll?
Scott Fishel,
Here.
Dennis Keeney. Here. Denise Brewster.
Here.
Linda Grassi.
Here.
Lori Kniske.
Here.
Just stand for the pledge, please. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, she got it. Okay, welcome. On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome all students, staff, parents, and interested community members to tonight's Board of Education meeting. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Board of Education held in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public comment during the meeting in the public participation section of the agenda. At this time, I move to amend the agenda, and the item that is presented is to remove from the 2026 fiscal PI forecast projection of spending of $520,000 for buses. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Why would we be removing that?
So we have 40 buses that are needed to transport our students every day. And the biggest need of buses is during a away football game when we have to transport the football team and the band. And at that time, we need 8 buses for that, so we need 48 buses. At present, we have 58 buses. And if you allow for 3 or 4 buses to be in maintenance at any given time, and let's say that's 4, we're at 54 buses and we need 48. We have 6 additional buses at this time. So I don't think we need to purchase any buses in the next fiscal year.
Gary, are you in agreement with this as our treasurer?
I haven't had time to really look at it, but it was just a placeholder on the PI forecast that was presented previously. Now it had tonight's just to show the board tonight.
But we haven't voted to purchase buses, so what are we actually putting on our agenda?
It's just to remove from the forecast because we have a 5-year forecast that will be presented. That number is a significant number and will have a significant effect on the forecast.
So that can't just be part of the discussion?
I'm moving to remove it, that's all, from the projection.
Now, it's
And we can discuss it all we want.
Okay, it's my understanding that the governor announced that there's going to be some funds coming our way for transportation, but we don't know details yet, whether that's reinstating, how they used to help us with bus purchases, or they're simply providing some smaller amount, but we don't know what that is yet, correct?
The governor's proposals for school bus safety, not
Safety
necessarily
grants
purchase.
to
but
the
that's-
retrogrades of the buses, of current fleet buses, is what I understand it as.
Cameras and things like that.
Not even camera, like lighted stop sign, like lighted signs, seatbelts, seatbelts is the one that comes up all the time. Like different safety recommendations that they have to retrofit older buses to upgrade to their specifications. There hasn't been any details out, but it is in the budget. They are increasing transportation, but it's just the base cost of transportation the current students we have, so it's a fund per ridership, they're raising that. That is in the proposed budget now, that's working its way through.
So it's not finalized
Nothing
until
is finalized till July 1.
July 1.
Did they say approximately how much money that would be? You said per student?
They said per student, the projections have that making up for a 5% loss for taking on the hit of the general fund, but they don't have a specific.
They don't have it broken out.
It's not broken out
It was included
yet.
in the projections when the governor's proposal came out, but that's the total number. There's multiple numbers that go into that we don't have those details. And that's just the governor's proposal, still goes to the House and then the Senate, and then we'll go to conference committee, because there'll likely be differences between the budgets that have to be resolved. So, and then by the time ODE updates the calculations, we probably won't know until September or October what those actually look like.
So you're thinking we'll know later this year?
Yeah, and that transportation funding is for the transporting of children, not necessarily for bus purchases.
Right, right. Yeah, that'll just be something that all districts either can use or will be required to use, right? Because if they have specifics like seatbelts.
Yeah, there's right now, as it currently stands, I just found the slide to go out. They earmarked $30 million for the school bus safety fund to provide safety enhancement for buses. And they are proposing, the governor proposed an increase of the state share of transportation to 45.8% in FY '26 and then 50% in FY '27. So that's just in the transport of students, that's there.
Okay, well, thank you
So-
for that.
Can
Just
I-
another note as well on the bus purchases, if we order the buses next year, we don't get them and actually pay for them until probably a year to a year and a half out. I don't know what the wait is now on them, but I know they waited a long time on the last lot we ordered.
It depends on
Yeah,
if we're buying regular buses or special ed buses, they have different lead times, and depending on what's in stock and what's available, we've gotten them as short as 3 to 4 months, as long as a year and a half to 2 years.
So normally, when we order a bus, we could expect a year,
I would say the minimum, that's the lead time out on a bus.
yeah. Right.
So can I just be clear again, we're voting to remove nothing from the agenda. You just want to remove something from a report that Gary has in his possession.
From a projected spending,
But it's not an agenda item.
correct.
I'm not clear what we have to vote on.
Voting on removing it from the projected 2026 spending.
Is that required?
Where should that be handled at?
So it sounds like the motion on the floor is to amend the agenda to include a resolution
Yep.
to remove it from the forecast. So I think after the board is finished discussing the question of whether to amend the agenda, then later in the agenda, that item would be added, and I would put it under financial matters. And then you would take up the merits of whether to remove those buses from the forecast.
But
And
we
then
don't,
vote
we
on
don't
it.
approve the PI forecast, correct me if I'm wrong. We-
Historically, we've not.
Yeah. So,
We do
so,
approve to go out to bid for buses, we typically approve to go out to the Ohio Schools Council to bid those buses out, they do it twice a year.
And we haven't done that yet, so I'm just confused on what it is we're voting to,
well, right
we're
now,
voting to not do something we haven't yet done.
no, we are voting to remove the projected spending in our 2026 fiscal spending report, projection
Actually, I
report.
think, Mr. McIntyre, you said we're amending the agenda to add a resolution.
Right, so
So that's
first
the
we're
first-
amending the agenda to add this resolution. So,
Basically, we're passing, you want to have a resolution to not purchase buses this year.
that's not what I said.
Kind of, it is.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to amend the agenda. Can I get a second?
I already seconded.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so the discussion, is there any further discussion? Okay, Gary, can you call the roll?
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Melinda Grassi,
Nay.
Lori Kniske,
Nay.
Dennis King.
Aye.
Okay, and so, Mr. McIntyre, can this resolution be voted on anywhere in the agenda?
It can,
Yeah,
yeah, it doesn't
so-
have to be financial.
So I would just handle that right now, and so I move to have that resolution, which is to remove the projected $520,000 in the 2026 fiscal year, to remove that from the projected forecast. And can I get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Is that simply because you don't like what that says, because it has facilities on there we can't afford? I'm curious why we're doing that.
So I want to be clear on all of our projections and be as accurate as we can possibly be. If that's not going to be there, we should just remove it.
So, Mr. Plappo, when you added the buses to our 5-year forecast, can you tell me why you added the buses?
It was based on historical purchases and the numbers on tonight's forecast that were in the projections when we get to that point, were repeats of the numbers that were provided this past fall.
Have we recently spoke to our transportation director to understand the condition of the fleet, and if we're going to need possibly purchase of new buses?
I haven't had that conversation with Kyle yet.
Okay, so we don't know at this point. Okay.
So I had that conversation with our transportation director today, and everything I just said is what he told me. And so, yes, we have that information directly from him today.
You have that information.
That's right, now we have it. Also, in taking care of our buses, so they're no longer on a 12-year life cycle and they can be on a 20-year life cycle, we're not going to be needing to buy as many buses in the future. So that'll be another topic of discussion, but maybe not for tonight. So any further discussion? Gary, can you call the roll?
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Hi.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Nay.
Lori Kniske.
Nay.
Motion passed. Approval of minutes.
I have some other additions of things that I would like to change the agenda, if you don't mind.
Okay. Ms. Grassi?
I would like to make a resolution to remove item B under Board of Education Business, which is Building Addition Buckeye Elementary, because I believe our 5-year forecast, or that 5-10-year forecast for our PI will show that we can't really afford that. I'd just like to remove that, table that for further conversation later down the road as we have an opportunity to review the budget for our PI fund.
So your motion is to amend the agenda to what?
To
I'm sorry.
remove item B under Board of Education Business. Please table it till further conversation can be had.
And just to be clear, that's item 15 on the agenda?
Item 15, item B,
Okay. 15B.
yes.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Gary, can you call the roll?
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Lori Kniske.
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Nay.
Dennis Keeney,
Nay.
Denise Brewster.
Nay.
I would also like to ask that we remove item C under Board of Education Business, giving our owner's representative authority for all the items listed in section 1, 2, and 3. I could read them if you'd like. We haven't had that conversation at all.
And so you want to remove what?
Item C, under Board of Education Business, owner's representative authority for Riverside School projects.
And you want to remove that for what reason?
We haven't had any conversation about it.
And what is there to discuss?
Takes away the authority of
If I
our,
could just, I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
don't mean to interrupt. So is there a second?
Yeah, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
No, discuss, please.
And now it's just discussion on removing it, correct?
Yeah.
I don't feel any of these are appropriate resolutions, so
And question, why is it not appropriate?
So, Mr. McIntyre, we are just discussing the, to remove it or not to remove it,
Whether
right?
to amend the agenda by removing that item.
Dan, would this be a one or a two-step process?
It would be it's really just to amend the agenda by removing it, so that would,
It's a one-step process.
one-step process, it would essentially table it, which is a a temporary delay.
Right, I was just waiting to see if there's any further discussion. You just don't think it's appropriate?
I do not,
Okay. Is there any other reason?
absolutely.
And
I
that
believe
is?
Section 2 indicates that our owner's representative shall consult as needed with the Riverside Local School District Board of Education President regarding scheduling and other matters of general project administration. It bypasses our administration. I don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, so this in no way bypasses the administration and
You're right,
Well-
because that was item D. So we can have that conversation when we get to item D.
okay, so you don't want to discuss that?
No, I do not believe that our owner's representative should be having conversations with you to determine the scheduling of the projects of this district's projects. That should be left in the hands of administration and the full board.
So the administration will be fully engaged like it has been up until this point. And as we move forward and work commences, it's very important during construction projects that we don't have multiple people instructing the people doing the work as to what they want done. And so it just needs to be clarified as to the line of communication, that's all.
Yes, the line of communication should be with our administration.
Okay, we'll appreciate that input.
I would kind of like to know what our owner's representative thinks about that item. I mean, who would our owner's representative, in general, be communicating with in any other project? They would be communicating with the administration.
Okay, do you have anything further to add?
Not at this time.
Gary, can you call the roll?
Linda Grassi,
I think I'm, it's
This is to remove.
it's a, yes, it's an aye.
Lori Krenisky,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Nay.
Dennis Keeney,
Nay.
Denise Brewster.
Nay.
Is there anything further, Ms. Grassi?
There sure is. I'm going to ask that we remove item D, authorization for change orders for Riverside School projects. Can I get a second?
Is that under 15?
It is under 15,
15D?
yes.
I will second.
And we have a second from Ms. Krasinski. And discussion?
I think it's highly inappropriate for authorization for change orders to be coming from someone outside of our district. We have a treasurer whose job encompasses that work. I feel like this crosses a line, and I'm not exactly sure what line that is right now. I'm having a hard time with that.
Okay, it's a normal procedural matter in most construction projects. So,
I'd just like to add that we're doing a lot of our homework in the preparation of these projects for construction. And due to that intense conversations we've been having and what our desires and needs are, I would think it would be a very rare instance where we would have a change order of that magnitude. That change order would have to come, basically a request from us to change something, and if we don't have our mind made up by the time this stuff goes to construction, then, you know.
No, this resolution gives our owner's representative the authorization to sign any necessary change orders authorized by this resolution. I have a
Yes,
problem with
I
that.
understand that, and I'm just saying, the likelihood of those change orders will be very, very slim.
I don't think that matters.
Okay.
so it's, just so everyone knows, it's, in construction projects, this is a normal mode of business, so.
I don't know. There's part of an ethical issue here too. So I don't know, Mr. Placco, I'm sorry, I'm gonna put you on the spot, but as a licensed treasurer, you do have ethical duties and requirements that you have to meet as far as managing our funds. I don't know how you feel about this.
Yeah, I guess I did have a question for Mr. McIntyre. Is this only referring to, talked about the contingency funds that are set by the board, is that the construction manager's contingency, or is this a separate contingency set by the district?
Typically, it would be from the contingency fund set as a part of the GMP.
Okay. It would not be anything that would increase the construction contract then?
Correct.
That would require a separate authority from the board?
That is correct. And it's also subject to availability of funds, which obviously you do when you certify the availability of funds for the GMP. but to look at this separately as well at that time.
And then with, being a public official that's held to a higher standard and can be personally held liable for negligence or things like that nature, giving this authority to someone who's not even employed on the district, basically, as a subcontractor of the district, does that put me up against any type of personal liability if something goes awry from something that I don't have authority at this point because it's being done by an owner's representative?
No personal liability in this situation for that.
Yeah, it's a separate contract outside of the treasurer's normal authority and responsibility.
I think it takes us down a slippery slope.
Can I ask our owner's rep how he feels about this? Sorry, putting you on the spot.
So, let's go back for a second regarding the coordination first and with the administration on that. We have been working with the administration. I will continue to work with them on scheduling. I cannot do some of the projects without, for instance, talking correction scheduling. When are we gonna be mobilizing, when we're not gonna be mobilizing, the type of work that we're gonna be doing. So I understand what the resolution says, but the reality is I still have to communicate with the administration to coordinate the work. Once the board approves the GMP and we get started and we're mobilized and we're on site working, most of my communication is gonna be with your architect and your construction manager as far as the work itself is concerned. If I need to coordinate something else that's on the grounds, I'm gonna have to coordinate that with the administration because I can't come up with answers on my own. So my day-to-day communication, regardless of this resolution, will be with the contractor and with the architect as far as pushing your project forward. If there is certain things that are gonna come up, I'm gonna have to communicate with the administration on it. And that's just, the part for the course. As far as the change order policy itself, there's a contingency, as the attorney stated, in the contract that allows for change orders to be posted against it. Anything over and above the GMP number itself, I will not authorize it, nor can I authorize it. I'm gonna have to go back to the treasurer to make sure that the funds are there and the funds are available if we're gonna increase the GMP itself. So this is where maybe the definition of a change order is a little bit unclear in what you're voting on. A change order for the contract, changing the amount of the contract, I cannot and will not authorize because I'm not procuring funds for you. That has to come from the treasurer. Anything within the GMP itself, if you want to give me that authority, then I will act accordingly within the GMP. But it's not a change order. It's a amount that's gonna be posted to the contingency itself. So if the contract amount, the GMP is gonna change, I cannot change that amount without talking to the treasurer and getting approval that the funds are available.
Mr. Placco, I have a question. When, in the past, when we did our elementary schools, we had contingency funds in the project set aside. We still authorized the change orders.
Back then, and also for the vestibule project, the board had authorized giving myself up to $25,000 change order authority, with the superintendent up to $50,000, and then with the board president up to $100,000, not to exceed $200,000 in total change orders without board approval. So back during, when we did Parkside and Riverview, we had larger change orders we brought them to the board. Some of the smaller miscellaneous ones were just approved by myself. I think we had one where Mrs. Krasinski had to be involved with. We had one larger one, I think it was.
But I think we still approved them at the board table, like after the fact. We did approve them.
We did approve a lot of them. Some of them we did not because they were smaller ones, but all the larger ones we have. And then, in the past, with the construction manager contingency for Parkside and Riverview, most of that was used for authorized overtime work, for weekend work, and things like that to try to keep the project on schedule.
And that was all within the contract.
On the contingency funds within the contract.
Right,
But
it's all within the contingent. It goes outside of that, it's a different story.
I still don't-
Oh, sorry.
I still don't know why we need to give, no offense, Roger, why we have to, like, let that be outside of our district, because if he's gonna be communicating with the administration, I would think that you should still have the authority to approve those change orders within the policy and processes that we already have in place.
Because it's gonna be written into a
Like,
contract.
5 minutes of a phone call isn't gonna change how the construction project progresses if he doesn't get an answer from you in 5 minutes, right? Like, it's not gonna change that.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, are there regular meetings, updates? How does that flow throughout the project?
Typically, you have weekly meetings with the contractors, and then there'll be like a monthly core team meeting with everyone involved
Mhm.
that's administering the project. Is how
So
we've
the
done it in
potential
past.
for surprise, like finding a car buried underneath the dirt over at
Parkside.
Parkside. Yeah, it had to be removed, or some things are found out ahead of time, but, okay.
I'll just go on record again as stating that I don't think that we should be having the authority to sign purchase orders be taken out of the control of the individuals that we have employed in this district to do that work. The extra time it takes to make a phone call, I don't think is going to make that big of a difference in the project's progress. I would like to see our own employees, we indemnify our employees, we have insurance to cover those things. I feel like that should be left in the hands of our staff.
Mr. McIntyre, if I'm understanding correctly, a lot of this terms and conditions are gonna be outlined in the contract anyways.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Gary, can you call the roll?
Linda Grassi,
What, this is to remove, right?
to I is to remove, and A is
Thank
to
you.
keep.
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Nay.
Dennis Keeney,
Hey,
Denise Brewster.
Nay.
Okay. And make a motion to approve the minutes as attached. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Gary, can you call the roll?
Just clarify, it's the February 27th, 2025 minutes. Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney.
Aye.
Motion carried. Special reports.
All right, I have two. First up tonight is Mr. Chantry and the Riverview staff giving an update on, I believe, their personalized learning that's occurring in Riverview. Down button.
Okay, well, first, thank you for allowing us to share about our school tonight. We're happy to be here. And I just wanted to introduce the teachers that we have here tonight, Tana Ford and Kim Fullars, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, and then, of course, our wonderful assistant, Deborah Long. So we're all going to be giving a little bit of information about personalized learning at Riverview. And just for a quick little definition of personalized learning is a model where students actively participate in their learning through choices that align with their interests and their strengths and their level of achievement. So we have some really great things going on district-wide, and we'll share a little bit about that also. For instance, our 3rd grade math teachers in the district started a cohort last year where they were having additional training and experiences in personalized learning. This is their 2nd year that they've been a part of that. Our 4th grade team has started their 1st year this year, and then all of our staff in the district has had the opportunity through our professional development days to take part in learning, and also collaboration with colleagues who have already been implementing personalized learning. So we wanted to share what it looks like at Riverview, and in specific grade levels, it looks a little different at every level. We have some teachers who are kind of like entry level and aren't completely comfortable yet, but they're mainly like starting with just the choice part. And then we have teachers who are really, really doing a lot more in-depth personalized learning in their classroom. So we're going to start with kindergarten. So in kindergarten, we're just starting with offering choice. And this is a kindergarten choice board for sight word time. And typically you might see, if it wasn't personalized, you might see just like one drill for sight words that everybody's doing. That might not match up to every student's strengths of how they learn, if they're visual learners or if they learn by repeating the words. So when we're teaching sight words, we want kids to see them, say them, spell them, be able to pick them out in some text, even at kindergarten level. So this is an example of personalized learning where it was sight word time, and some students were using like clay to outline the spelling to help them learn how to spell the sight word. Some of them were doing like a little rolling the dice thing where then they would have to find the sight word on their paper. So it kind of just aligns to different skill levels and interests. And so that's just a little bit of what we're doing in kindergarten. And then, these are just pictures of them doing their different activities. And then the teacher would be walking around and asking them questions and helping them. We want to see that they're not just busy doing something. We want to see what they're actually getting out of it and that they are learning as they're doing their different activity. And then in first grade, a lot of just starting out with choice in first grade. This is a first grade sight word or choice board. Independent reading time. They can choose if they want to listen to their story on their Chromebook, if they want to read with a partner, if they want to read independently. They might be practicing some other skill for reading that is aligned to their level. And then second grade.
In second grade, we are really trying to cater to each of the students' needs, their strengths, their interests, their learning styles, and we've really kind of opened up some of the choice time in not only math, but in our ELA portions of our day. This is an example. In the top corner, there's the choice board that you would see if you walked in. Kids are able to build choice out of our new program, Wit and Wisdom, and also with GEOS during this time. It's really encouraging some independence. Students are taking charge of their learning. And if you notice also at the bottom, kids are kind of jotting down the look to see what choices are available today, things that they have to do, and some choices that they can choose from that day. And they will make a plan of the choices that they want to use that day, and simply just on a dry erase board, so they can start to also learn to manage their time. This is an example of math choice time, and during this time, they're doing a little bit of goal setting. So this is where we've kind of gotten a little bit away from just the choices, and now we're like building in the goal part of it. They're trying to determine where they are, what needs they have as a learner, and then also offering different choices there. So you'll see kids in the classroom that are working with a teacher. You'll see them working maybe with a partner. They will also be working on some of our digital platforms that support our programs. And then we also have opened it up to doing some choice during foundations. You'll be happy to know that sometimes during foundations we can make the lesson go 25 minutes, and other days they go 45 minutes. So if we structure our time and offer some choice during that, now we have already built this structure that embraces time for us to work with kids in small groups to target the interventions that we need to support their learning. And again, you're going to see kids that are on our digital platforms, such as FunHub, that we were able to try out this year. They're working with the trick words that are in the program. They're working on some of the activities that maybe we would have originally done whole group. Now we've been able to kind of pull those back, and now they can be a little bit more independent with that, free up some more time where you can get in with those small groups or individuals and monitor student learning that way.
That's you.
To be fair, she updated the slide deck after I printed it, so that it doesn't matter. That's what happened.
Is that what happened? Sorry, we have really good pictures we
So-
need to put in.
So certain.
I saw people like looking around, like, no, that
Oh, sorry.
No, yeah.
We're keeping you on your toes, you gotta.
That's right, I appreciate it.
We have to pay closer attention.
Yeah.
I started my personalized learning journey 2 years ago, and it has changed my life. And I have it all to thank to Dr. Malatro, who has actually let me be part of a program this year where I got to work with other teachers from other school districts from all over the state of Ohio and just learn some like really awesome strategies to include in my classroom. So I'm really proud of that. My students have started what they call data binders, so they're like owning their own learning, and they're kind of, I guess they're excited about what they get to do. So the engagement is really high in my room. So if they get, even if they get a B on one of their tests, they're like, I can't wait to write it in there and see what I can do and see how I can grow. So we're starting that process here in my class, so you can kind of see the data binders there. We've actually done 5 of them already, so the kids can show you their data binders when they come in the room. I know Ms. Long likes to come in and look at them, so they're very excited there. Here's just where I showed small groups and how we just kind of get together. There's lots of small groups going on. The learning is just always just with one-on-one, kind of looking. The kids are super engaged in what they're doing. And this is where they pick their activities. This is kind of that choice board you keep hearing, that famous word. I have lots of choices. They have a learning progression that they can do. Some kids have choices up to 10. Some kids have choices 2. So it just depends. But this is where we organize it, and this is where they go and get it, and they can make their choices throughout the day. Flexible seating, that's been super important. Thank you to Dr. Rotino for letting us have money so we can have flexible seating. And this was one of the chairs that we bought this year. It's kind of neat. You sit in it, and then there's a little tray in front, and they can put their Chromebook on them. As an adult, don't get in it because it's really hard to get out. I actually showed a picture of the language arts classroom that is my teaching partner and how she has started incorporating personalized learning. So there's lots of different seating going on in her room. So I thought I would add that in there because she started her journey this year. So it's been amazing.
And so the next 2 slides talk about our 4th and 5th grade, because we know that we're trying to keep their attention and keep them actively engaged. And so we did instructional rounds this year. We started them. And when our teachers went around to the different classrooms and they saw our personalized learning guru, and then went into Mrs. Flar's room and saw the 2nd graders who can manipulate all their own learning, they wanted to try it too. And so our 4th grade ELA did a culmination project on nonfiction. Nonfiction is not every 4th grader's favorite subject on the planet Earth. I don't know if you know that, but sometimes they're not into it. By offering different versions of what they could produce for their teacher, their engagement went up tenfold. The teacher, who was a little bit resistant, because they liked their projects and they liked the way that they have been doing this for years, couldn't believe that kids who struggle on the daily got to pick what they wanted, picked a subject that maybe they didn't think they'd have any interest in, and they flew with it. And what they learned was more than it could have been if we would have pigeonholed them into a project. The students loved it so much, and they gave feedback to the teacher, which they thought was really cool. And they said, you have to do this again next year. You have to. And so that then led that teacher to start looking at the rest of their curriculum this year and seeing where they could offer that choice. Our 5th grade, another ELA, text features. I don't know if you remember text features. They're very exciting to learn about. 5th graders really embrace text features in this project because they could choose to be the teacher to teach text features to others. They could make a game board to teach text features. They could do a collage that they found all the text features in different magazines and put it in, and then they could explain it, because then they had to orally present their project. So we stepped it up one more level for them. And so that's another piece. It's dragging sometimes the knowledge out of the kids, but making it in a way that they're choosing to do it. And that's why we really like personalized learning at Berkeley.
And And we just wanted to kind of come back to the point that we all made a little bit, and that's the outcomes that we have noticed with this. And as an administrator, when you walk into a room and you see these little people, and you know, I'm mainly thinking about second grade when I'm telling this, they're all just so, they're independent, they feel good about themselves, they are learning time management skills. And when they have that ownership, they try so much harder, and like Ms. Long said, sometimes the product that they give you is far more than you would expect for somebody their age, and they just have that autonomy to go in whatever direction without us like making them go in a certain direction. So it's really nice to see, and also the behaviors go down significantly. I mean, I really don't think that we are in either of these classrooms that much for behavior reasons, because the kids are so busy and they just are, you know, the time flies. And so we're really, really loving it. We're grateful for the opportunities that we've had to learn, and we just want to keep it going.
Absolutely. Building strong relationships with your kids, this personalized learning definitely increases that. Like, I know my kids so well. I'm so proud of them every day for their journey that they have created. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
So, just to reiterate, I did present to programs, I'm sure Mrs. Booster will share a little bit about that, about our academic plan and how personalized learning is kind of one of the main hubs on that, and everything you focuses around what our kids know individually, how we drive them forward to what they know, and then how do we show that they know it. So, really great stuff, and what we know about change is if you get that critical 30%, the rest will start to fall. So Riverview is a great example of how they've got 30% really excited about personalized learning, and the building continues to try more and more. So they are to be commended in that. Next up, I have a special report construction updates. Ryan from TDA could not be here tonight, but did ask that I share the Buckeye Elementary update. This was also attached to board docs. This is the latest iteration of the addition on the Buckeye that came out of the committee. It's got 8 classrooms, 3 that typically model that the kindergarten classrooms at Parkside and Riverview. A 4th is the same size, being targeted, I believe, for music and art. So it'll have the sync and all that. And then 4 additional classroom spaces as well. So it's a net of 2 to the modulars that we're replacing. Full-size gym with chairs. I don't know, you know, if those chairs are gonna be up all the time. We have chairs there just to show that it is a stage for performance as well. I don't think any chairs are listed out, but that is that. And then Mr. Riachi is here from
Can I go back to that?
Yeah.
Let me just add one thing. Right in here, there are a couple meeting rooms that were added.
Well, tutoring rooms.
Tutoring rooms?
Small group.
Okay.
Small group
small
rooms.
group, it could be offices.
So,
It's the same concept as the Riverview Edition. We made offices at Riverview from them. They can be offices, they can be small group rooms. Again, diverse, you know, ability to change and use them for multiple things.
the actual meeting room is the green space.
There is a targeted meeting room as well,
Right.
that is in there at the
Yeah,
very end.
that's right here.
Mhm.
And then this was the art music room, and it does have a
Up here,
bathroom.
right in the
Whoop, sorry. It does have a bathroom, so kids don't have to go in and out all the time. But we thought it would be best as you enter into the new section that the art music is right there and people don't have to travel all the way down that hallway to get to it. But it also, it's my understanding that the music is not there the same day as gym. And so if they wanted to use the stage, they could do that. And then the chairs, according to Ryan, they are like a certain type of chair that like takes minimal space to stack. And he, thought that they could be stored in that section.
That's a storage room.
Yeah, storage for gym and chairs, but we need to see how much room the gym teacher needs.
Sure.
Okay?
And so Roger is here to provide some of the general project updates as the board has requested, and then timelines as we're getting closer. Every month the timelines become more and more in scope, I guess is the word I'm looking for, or clarified, and then as well as any questions. So
All right, so we'll give a project update. The CTE and the Riverview project. The documents have been completed, construction documents are completed, they've been uploaded to the site that was created by the architect and Cleveland Construction today, actually. I think we were waiting on a few more drawings from the civil team, but we should have that in the next couple of days. So we will be working for the next few weeks on developing the GMP between Cleveland Construction, myself, and TDA. And our goal is to have that GMP completed and submitted to the board by the end of May for approval. The way the process works is Cleveland Construction will start working on the GMP. They will submit a draft copy to Ryan with TDA and myself. We'll review it, we'll make our comments on it, we'll go back and forth probably on that. And then once we get a final copy that Ryan and myself are happy with, we'll submit that to the administration and the board for review and approval. At that point in time, once the GMP is approved by the board, the attorney will draft a GMP amendment, which is just a AIA document that matches the AIA contract that has been issued. And all that document is gonna say is that the board is agreeing with the GMP that's been submitted by your construction manager at risk. And then we'll have in that durations for completion, substantial completion, and final completion for each one of the two projects. And it will list all the documents that GMP was being built based on, which is the documents that have been reviewed by the administration, the committees, everybody involved in the process. So we're at this stage now. One of the things I asked that Brian, the architect, does with the administration and the committees is to do a page turn, which he is going to do that. He's on vacation next week. He's trying to schedule something,
We
with-
scheduled that is.
He did March
yes,
31st.
March 31st, 7:30 to 9.
So that page turn, essentially what it does is to kind of walk through the drawings, and particularly it's important for your architectural, your electrical, and IT. Mechanical is really, there's not a whole lot of input. I mean, the mechanical system is the mechanical system. But it's important to go through door swings, light switches, what light switches are gonna turn on, when you're walking through the buildings, both the additions. So, some of your IT drops, where they're gonna be located to coincide with the needs of who's gonna be using them. So that's gonna take place, March 31st. That will not affect the GMP because we're still gonna be working on that. If anything comes out of that meeting, if there is some, any changes or tweaks to the documents, they'll send us that and we'll incorporate that as part of the GMP number, so that should not be an issue. Also, Ryan is gonna be submitting the documents to the township and the county for their review and approval, so they can issue the building permit. We feel pretty comfortable with where we're at with it, because he's had some conversations already with both the county and the township, so they know what we're doing and what's coming on, what's gonna be submitted to them, so we're not expecting any big surprises. So based on where we stand right now, we're looking to potentially break ground the first week in June, and we will have an updated schedule at that point in time once we have all the subcontractors on board and the list is finalized. Cleveland Construction will work with their subcontractors to develop a official schedule for both projects. But the intent is to run them concurrently, starting the first part of June. Any questions on Riverview or CTE before I jump into Buckeye?
There's some tree removal or something coming up at Riverview.
That is starting, it has to be done before the end of the month. because of the path situation, and that is taking place next week.
Okay.
Is Cleveland gonna self-perform any work on this, or is it gonna be all subcontracted?
I don't think they're gonna be self-performing anything at this point in time. They have not advised me that they will. Once they look at the documents, if they do, choose to, I will definitely let you know. You and I can talk about, that process, because they would have to submit their bid to both of us in advance, a day in advance. And then you and I can look at those proposals when they come in, and we can go from there. But so far, they haven't advised me that they will.
And you did send out a contractor list, that if there's any contractors that
Yes.
you know of that we do not want to engage with, please let us know.
That we do or don't, both.
If do or don't,
both.
anyone that are
Um,
preferred or non-preferred, if you have anyone, please let us know,
So,
so we can get that list over ASAP.
so Rich send me his list this afternoon. If anything else from whether the administration or the board is gonna be come out, please get us that by early next week, because we wanna add or delete, to the list, because those bid packages are gonna start going out next week to all the subcontractors. So if there is some subcontractors within the community, that you want us to entertain and qualify so they can bid, please let us know by early next week.
There's an IT on there too, so we should have our tech director submit
Yes,
as well.
I
You included his?
added technology.
Okay, thank you.
that is part of what Rick sent us this afternoon. Anything else on CTE or Riverview?
We'll
Or
get
the
to-
process itself?
We'll get 2 GMPs, correct?
Yes. You will be getting two separate contracts that you have on all of it. The architect, the construction manager, and Chris, it's all two separate contracts. So you will be getting two separate, one for CTE and one for Riverview. Anything else on those two? So Buckeye is, you saw, we do have Ryan has been working on a preliminary, very schematic design. I think this is what you saw tonight is kind of the path he's following as far as the design is gonna be concerned. We're gonna be anticipating some more elaborate schematic design from his firm in the next couple weeks. Once we get that, we will be developing a budget, a schematic design budget that we will share, with you, and so you can look at it, and then you can make some decisions accordingly. And based on, what comes out of that schematic design budget, we will move into design development. We will do another budget at design development, stage that we will share with the board and administration, and then you can make some decisions accordingly as well. And then from there, we'll go into the construction documents. And that's gonna be ongoing over the next several months. I do not have an exact schedule from Ryan yet on the different timing of that for Buckeye, because he's been focused on CT and Riverview. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, when he gets back into it, we will have a little bit more of a defined, schedule for that.
So is the schematic on Buckeye the new addition or the renovation as well, interior, existing building?
As far as I know, it's only the addition. I'm not
I
aware
just wanted
of
clarification.
anything going on with the renovation.
Right,
If you had some discussions with Ryan, I'm not aware of them.
No.
As far as I know, it's only for the addition.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
was shown,
Right.
previously.
okay.
8 classroom and a gym.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Gary, Chris, did I miss anything that I need to, that you want to elaborate on, or?
I don't have any questions, I'm good.
What would be the earliest likelihood of starting construction if Buckeye was to move forward?
Realistically, probably not till the fall. And at that point in time, so with Buckeye, once we have a better handle on the documents and exactly once we go through the SD and DD phase, I think we need to take a closer look as to what, you know, come up with a schedule then and determine what makes the most sense. Because obviously it's an active school, we're gonna have some discussions, we're gonna need some input from everybody involved as far as what makes the most sense so we can develop that construction schedule. Right now, truthfully, we don't have one because we don't even know the extent of the work. I mean, we know what it is, but we don't know what's involved with it. He's still waiting on some of the, he's gonna be looking at some of the civil, I'm not sure utility-wise, what is in the back of that building, and are we gonna have to move certain things or not? We're still kinda in the preliminary, but judging just from the process of getting the documents finalized, I don't see that happening. And then, like I said, we need to have discussions with the board and the administration as to how do you wanna go about that project, and do you wanna start and stop, and, you know, because of school, or do you wanna wait? I don't know, I mean, that's something that we'll have to figure out collectively.
I know when we had the 10, like the larger additions, you had Cleveland come up with like an estimate. Can you do that with this 8 classroom as well?
We can give you a preliminary
Yeah.
if you'd like this, but I was hoping to maybe wait till SD.
Okay.
We can, it's up
That's
to you.
fine.
We can do both. I think the SD phase will give us a little bit more of an accurate. The original one was just a square foot price that they put together.
Okay.
So we can do that, we can certainly do that for the 8 classroom and the gym in the back, just to give you an idea as to where we're at. But I would say it would be very, very preliminary one, and the SD would be a little bit more accurate.
Okay. Is there a preference? Do you want to wait till the SD? or
Well,
the preliminary or
you're
both?
gonna do it twice if you do it,
Okay.
so the more information you get, the easier it gets.
Yeah. And I think, in talking to Ryan, he looks like in a couple weeks, well, with him being out next week, I'm not sure, but he should be able to get us something decent enough with some details and some verbiage that we can put a SD, number that's, that's gonna give you at least an idea of where we stand.
And part of the issue is, like Roger said, Ryan has to figure out where the utilities are.
Yeah, that's the civil part of Buckeye is gonna be obviously critical, just like the rest of them as well. Because if we don't have to move any utilities in the back is one thing. If we have it, that's gonna change your cost, could change it drastically, not for sure, but it'll definitely have it. What's that?
Not a fan of drastically.
No, I know. So.
So, thank you, Roger.
And that concludes my reports.
Okay. And is there any old business?
Did you get?
Oh, okay. Okay, so, old business, Ms. Grassi?
Yes, I wanted to review the PI forecast with some of the parameters, the 10-year outlook and some inflationary factors built in. I don't know if you're gonna cover that in your treasurer's report, and that's,
We can do it now or we can do it later, it's either
I
fine
mean,
for you.
if you have it in your treasurer's report, we don't have to do it now, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I could do it in the treasurer's update.
Okay. I also had old business, I would like an update on the LLB consulting contract and what the scope of work is that we're actually doing, what the expected cash outlay will be and the time to complete, and what methodology will be used to compile the email list that they are being requested to compile. Do we have any update on that?
There is an updated contract that was attached to the agenda. I just got that, when did we get that? But that's item 15A.
Right, can we discuss that, can you discuss that a little bit for the public?
It does specify to gather email addresses. Let me bring it up real quick. And they do not have the the methodology. I know Mr. Carabine's been out, that's why he's been the primary working with. So the scope of work is to compile a list of current email addresses for adult residents of the Riverside Local School District for the purpose of regulatory distributing board communications. The payment is as agreed, it was the $250 per hour with a retainer of $9,000 ahead of time. They act as an independent contract and we own, we specifically, the work goes directly to us. Is that correct?
It is.
Yeah, thank you. Used a lot of legal terms in here. I'm doing my best to translate them. And then everything's strictly confidential.
Do we have any idea? Has there been any conversation about how long that process should take? Compiling an email list is largely a voluntary, from what I understand, process of opt into emails, so, it's
I
not like we're
think this
going out-
involves some purchasing of emails as well from distribution centers, and there's opt-out. Any email you send, you have to have an opt-out clause to it as well, any mass email, so if you get it once, there should be an opt-out to it. I do not have any methodology, I was not able to.
So we don't know
Yeah.
how that's going to happen
We
yet.
don't know that.
Will we,
I will continue to search.
so, once we compile this email list, and we don't know how long it's gonna take, so we're kind of leaving ourselves open to an open-ended contract of unlimited dollars, because we haven't put a stop loss on that contract, so we haven't put a cap on it. While we look at deficit spending in our general fund, we have this unlimited contract for $250 an hour for however long it takes, and we don't know how long that's gonna take, because we don't have any expectation, we don't have any estimate on the time frame in this contract. That's kind of problematic for me. Will we receive any information about how that email list, when it's determined to be complete? Like, how will we know that? Has any of that been discussed with this contractor?
So in our initial meeting, she would provide us the list when it's complete, when she feels it to be complete. That would be a list, that would be the end of the contract. I believe that's what it states in this, is that once the list is.
Right, like, how do we determine completion? Who determines completion?
LLB would be the one who determines.
So until she determines this list is complete, we keep paying $250 an hour. It just doesn't make any sense to me, like, there's no estimate on how long that should take. If we're purchasing a list, it's already purchased, we shouldn't have to do a whole lot of work, except for people to opt out. From what I understand in doing some of my own questioning of other people in this profession, purchasing of email lists is generally not worth your money, because you usually get a bunch of emails that are not accurate, and eventually whoever's doing the sending gets blacklisted, and then mailing houses won't email those. So I'm curious, like, again, as to the process of how this is gonna work, how that's going to be developed, if we're just going about, asking people for their email addresses. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Carabine already does that. Every time we communicate with somebody in any way, when we put it in the pipeline, we ask people to opt in to our emails. If we're doing this in an opt-in methodology, I'd like to know how that works. So. We don't have any answers to those questions.
I do not have that answer.
Will we get answers?
I will ask.
Thank you. And I would also like to know who's going to direct this work, and how we're going to manage that under the retainer. I mean, I would imagine Mr. Carabine's going to have some involvement in that, but this isn't his project, so I kind of want to know who's going to manage that, who's going to determine when we've spent enough money, I guess.
And you had some new business?
I did. Under new business, which apparently we've already addressed a little bit of that new business, I wanted to discuss, but I feel like we should talk about the PI forecast and do this in conjunction with the PI forecast. New business, I thought that this board should undertake some conversation about what possible ways that we can curtail spending in our PI fund to create a balanced PI budget, whether that means not doing projects that we have slated to do currently, or what other kinds of things we have we are going to prioritize or not prioritize in our PI budget. Apparently, Mr. Fischel has already decided that we're not going to purchase buses, so I guess we've already decided that. We didn't even have any conversation, and that was the new business, is taking a look at the PI budget. In our finance meeting of last week, we had some very heated conversation about the negatives that are showing up in the PI budget. And again, we can talk about that further when you have your update. So I feel like that's something that this board needs to consider, whether we do that now or have a work session to talk about our PI budget. I think we should do that. And the last item I have for new business is to begin discussion about how to curtail expenses in the general fund to extend the levy life at least one more year into the future as it is, or to possibly think about other ways or alternate methods of generating additional revenue. We're not having those conversations. We need to be doing that. If we're going to be spending money in a PI budget that we don't have money, those dollars would have to come from the general fund. So this is a cycle that we're getting ourselves into, and I feel like we need to be having that conversation. I don't think it's appropriate for this table right here, right now, today, because I feel that's work session. That's lengthy conversation. Generally speaking, when we tried to have conversation about what we're going to do to extend the life of our levies when we're in deficit spending, it's been a long process with our administration coming up with recommendations on where we can curtail expenses, staying away from the classroom as much as possible, what those things would look like. That is not something that I feel comfortable doing. I'm not in the administration, so I'm not here every day to determine what those things would look like. So I would think that we would be looking for some recommendations on what those things would be.
So are you suggesting a work session?
I am suggesting a work session, probably to discuss both the PI budget and our 5-year forecast, because I think they are so intertwined at this point that I don't think you can discuss one without the other.
I would agree with setting up a work session, so.
I would prefer to do that sooner rather than later. Don't know, Gary, if you want to send out some times, if we want to do that at this table right here, it
You
doesn't matter.
want to set a date right now
Sure, we can do that.
while everyone's right here? Do you have any suggestions?
I'm available pretty much any night.
Ms. Krasinski?
I have games and all kinds of stuff, so you guys throw out a date and I'll see if I have.
April 8th, April 9th?
The 8th through 11th, I'm in Columbus for the annual treasurer conference.
You probably want to be there, huh?
You probably want him there.
Okay, so 8th, 9th, and 10th, you said?
8th, 9th, 10th, 11th.
Oh, and 11th, okay.
We already have a
Yeah.
special meeting set up for the 8th, which,
Right.
That would
from
be
what I
the-
understand, wasn't going to take very long, correct?
I actually have a community conversation scheduled right after that. So it's a quick meeting and I have to run to Melridge, which is on the books.
Is it possible
Okay,
to
that's
do
knowledge.
like, I don't know how your work schedules
Well,
go, but
what-
at like a 4 o'clock?
Would you want to do the 7th?
That's the
He's
night
got
of the
something
community
after.
conversations. Yeah, I would prefer
So
not to
that
do.
week's
That
gone.
day's pretty.
Then
That
we
week's
need to
gone,
go into
okay.
the.
I'm sorry, I said April 8th. I meant April
Yes.
7th. Right, we have a board meeting on April 7th.
Plus, we would probably want a little more time for the administration to vet some ideas,
Okay.
to make sure we don't just walk in and
Do you want to move into the next week then?
Yeah.
Gary?
I mean, we can even move into later in April. I mean, we have the 5-year forecast is due at the end of May, correct?
Yeah.
We have a board meeting on the 24th. A regular board meeting.
I mean, I would think that if we're going to do anything preliminary, I mean, if we're going to do anything large, we would probably have to have some conversations before you do the forecast, right? It would be helpful to have some of that information into the forecast and built into the forecast if we could make some decisions, and we would have to, some things need resolutions that you would have to put on a board agenda. I mean, that goes without saying. So,
Would you want to do it on the 29th, April 29th? That's a Tuesday.
okay, so that's post-board meeting, correct?
Yeah, it is. She wanted
So
it
you want to
before.
do it on Tuesday, the 22nd?
Are you available?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Ms. Brewster, 22nd?
I can do the, well, no, the 22nd doesn't work for me, but the 21st, 23rd, it's
The
fine.
21st.
21st is, you guys don't have school, correct?
Yes, the 21st is.
Yeah, we're to the 23rd.
Oh, yeah, so the 23rd?
I can't do the 23rd.
Ms. Krasinski can't do the 23rd.
Can we do the 15th, April 15th?
I can't, my son's playing at lacrosse, so
Okay, and the 14th doesn't work?
Well, I think that week, oh, that's the 11th, 8th to 11th, you're out, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we can't revise the forecast.
Right.
So I guess if you want to push that off to the week of the 28th, I just feel like we need to start having a
The
conversation.
29th then, the Tuesday, the
Yeah, it doesn't
29th?
matter. I feel we just need to start having some conversations.
Ms.
so-
Krasinski,
I'm
29th?
fine, yeah.
Okay, Ms. Brewster, 29th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Keeney?
So what time?
Whatever time anybody wants.
6?
Earlier would be better, we have a
Five?
choir, we have a
Well,
choir
Ms.
concert.
Krasinski-
It's a pretty busy choir concert.
Choir.
What-
I'm pulling up my work calendar right now. I'm sorry, I can't answer without looking.
What's on my work calendar?
Ms.
April.
Grassi, what time would be earliest for you?
I will make whatever, I
You'll
will make
make-
5 o'clock work if that works.
You'll
make it-
If you can't, then.
Actually, I can't the 29th, I'm out of town with work.
Uh,
I didn't have
30th?
it on my calendar yet.
30th?
Yeah, I could do the 30th.
Are you out of town?
You're out?
Yeah,
Gone?
Okay, what about the 28th?
Oh, boy.
my God.
28th?
This is crazy.
I can do the 28th.
Okay. Monday, the 20th.
Monday, the 28th. Going once, going twice.
Does that work for you?
Okay,
What
so
time, Linda?
Monday, the 28th, Ms. Krasinski, can you do like, what
What
time?
time
5,
works for you?
5:30?
I actually, yeah, I can do 5:30.
5 o'clock on the 28th.
5 o'clock on the 28th.
I know you
This
guys
is
like
a
5
board
o'clock,
work
not
session.
6 o'clock.
I was off for the 19th at late,
Okay.
so I'll be here 10:30 to pick up my son, so.
Okay, so work session, April 28th, 5 PM.
And I believe that if we can start that conversation by reviewing the PI forecast here this evening, it'll give us some fodder for conversation later in April.
Okay. We're set on that.
The 28th.
Okay, that's good for new business. The Board of Education Committee and Liaison Reports, Buildings and Grounds. We had a Buildings and Grounds meeting, and Mr. Arlesic laid out some items for us. We had a main sanitary break, which was repaired the same day, and we have some flaking windows. So that's at Parkside, right?
Correct.
And that's 3 windows?
In the cafeteria.
So there's 3 windows, there's a laminate on the windows, there's no risk or danger of the windows breaking or falling apart, it's just the laminate that's on there is chipping off. It's a bit of a defect, but we're outside the warranty timeframe, so there's a replacement cost, as things would be, of $10,836, and those will get replaced. The fencing for Parkside and Riverview retention ponds, update.
Parkside is complete, Riverview is underway.
And so we will have the water areas fenced to keep kids and people out. And the Office House has 3 exterior doors replaced with commercial-style doors and panic exit hardware last week, well, this couple weeks ago. And an exterior door in the John R. off the T Hall and the welding shop doors are scheduled to be replaced over spring break. Bathrooms, the 6 remaining bathrooms between John R. and Riverside High School will receive new bathroom stalls over the spring break. The Lake County Health Department will come out and do their spring inspections. Then we're looking at contract renewals, like snow removal and things like that. And then we're looking at the removal of the Buckeye modular classrooms. And I know, Mr. Arlesic, you had sent over, there was maybe some interest in one. Have you had any conversation?
I am acquiring information and pictures for the school district that's interested, and I will send that off to them tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. And then we have some older ones that have been there that are probably not roadworthy, if you will. So the most likely scenario, since they're so old, is they wouldn't be saleable, and probably have to dismantle them and dispose of them. So further information to come on those items. The CTE and Riverview discussion, quotes for tree removal. Mr. Patrizzi, that's moving forward, probably will start tomorrow, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And so that work will get done. And then Mr. Arlesic said that he found a replacement for the boardroom univent, $1,871.52. It was the deal of the year, and he found it, and he's going to do it, and a lot of people will be happy that it'll be quieter and more comfortable and look better.
I'm not guaranteeing anything. I'm just saying we're doing the work.
So, good on that. So, thank you for that. Okay, the business advisory talked about a lot of opportunities for students, really, is what it came down to. And looking at developing programs so that kids can have more opportunities. There's a senior capstone project. It's a 250 hours requirement with a local company, and this is a replacement for competency for graduation. Would you like to add anything else, Ms. Malakar, to that?
We had our first meeting today with students who are interested in the pilot next year.
And how many?
Well, we had 21 kids, and even after I talked about it, they all signed up to fill out the application. So we have 21 who are interested. I don't know if we're going to be able to take all of them in the pilot, because next year will just be a pilot, but it was a good first showing of interest. So it's very exciting.
Because in the meeting, you were saying you were thinking 10.
Well, they keep trying to tell me I can only do 10.
Okay.
But I may have found a workaround to
Okay.
do more than that.
So it's part of what we want to do is incorporate the local businesses with our students and vice versa. And students can come out of high school and have some experience and possibly have an experience that they will either define as liking or not liking. And if they don't like it, at least they would know what they don't like and can move on to something else. And so it's offering some opportunity and looking to grow that program and expand that program. As we know, a lot of students go to college, have a lot of debt, sometimes have a very difficult time many, many years into their life paying that off. And sometimes another option where they're not going to have that debt would be more favorable. So we're moving in that direction. And then there are some other items. Future Forward Fair, the 9th graders, looking at maybe 10th graders. What can Riverside do for you to help get you ready? And just, you want to talk about that just briefly?
So we're looking at more of that comprehensive programming that we would be doing, maybe a one-time event each year for each grade level of high school students. So when you talk about the Future Forward Fair in 9th grade, looking at how can Riverside help advance kids in their career exploration, like being here as a high school student. Then looking again at 10th grade, what could we do for 10th graders to get them to start thinking beyond high school? So looking at different programs that we can do for all students at the high school level to give them more career experiences.
And then also, looking at teaching kids how to be responsible, pay their bills, plan, invest, that sort of thing. Right now, we pretty much have one financial class, right, for the kids?
We have financial literacy that is a requirement.
Right.
Yes, the kids take as juniors.
Right. And so it's just starting to be broached, a possibility of expanding that a little bit and teaching kids a little bit more. And wouldn't it be great if, you have to be 18 unless your parents sign for it, but how wonderful would it be if we could have the kids at Riverside being signed up with 401ks or IRAs or something, even when they leave high school? Because as we know, sometimes we never get to it. But if something were there, even if they weren't funding it right there, they would have it and it would be available to them. And we want to help each and every student have the best opportunity possible. So we might be looking at developing that a little further. So that was a discussion I had after the
I
meeting.
didn't know we were working on that, but okay.
So who's our financial guy that was?
He's not our financial guy.
Well,
he's
the guy
he's
that
mine.
attends the meeting.
Yeah, Adam Lulo.
Adam, so Lulo, so we had some discussion about that, and so we'll talk a little bit more about it and discuss it with you.
And Adam's very involved in the district, so
Yeah.
he would be,
Yeah,
he's a great connection.
He was
for us
excited
across
about
the
it,
board.
so, yeah.
He's a
So,
good guy.
all right, so that's my report. Curriculum and programming.
Okay. The Curriculum Programs Committee met on March 14th, and the report from Dr. Malakar was that they had the second Professional Development Day that was held on March 3rd. The teaching staff met in the morning to follow up on their previous in-service work, but in the afternoon, the entire staff met in the field house to celebrate the year's successes. There were photo boards on display. Part of your upcoming report, I don't want to steal your thunder, talks a little bit about it.
A little bit.
Okay. So it was very successful, and it got the entire staff, whether you're teaching staff or bus drivers or maintenance, that everybody got together. So then Dr. Malakar then led a discussion on a new math program for grades 6, 7, and 8. It's called CPM, which stands for College Preparatory Math. However, it's not just geared for college-bound students. It includes student workbooks to practice skills, because a lot of the programs, even though this has a digital component, it allows them to do calculations, doing paper pencil, because some of that's missing. And then when they take testing, whether it's state testing or whatever, they have to be able to explain their answers. It isn't just, I got the answer. You have to explain the process. So that's included in this because there's a lot of collaboration with the students because they're engaged in problem solving. This program, because it's going to replace Sabbath math at these grade levels, the cost of the new program will be offset a great deal with the new program materials. CPM comes with a parent guide as well, which is important. And teacher training will take place one day before the end of the year and 4 over the summer, was it?
No, we're
No.
actually trying to get more before the end of the year. So
Okay.
we're still working with the company on that one.
Okay, so they'll be training prior to the end of the year?
Yes, so that
and-
teachers who want to prep and get ready over the summer will have time to do that.
Okay. And the program has been used successfully in Solon, West Geauga, and Aurora schools. It's my understanding, I had a conversation with someone at West G, but they said that there was a lot of training with the teachers, like
Yes.
to get them, like coaching them along.
Mhm.
Okay, because
That
it's a
comes with the
different
program.
way.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and at some point, maybe during Gary's report, we're gonna talk about the requested materials, because I had some questions about that, because it changed since our meeting.
Mhm.
Teaching and learning plan was outlined by Dr. Rotino, and are you covering this, or do you want
I
to
am
speak?
not yet. We are finalizing, putting some final touches on it.
Okay.
I'll bring it to the next programs.
Okay, so I don't want to
Then
steal your
Can
thunder on
present it
that.
after that.
All right, so, but basically, it'll be something that's posted online. Everybody can see how everything is connected with what we're doing instructionally, and it also incorporates the traits for a portrait of a Riverside Beaver. So that's to be more detailed.
We are really excited about how it's all coming together.
Okay. All right, and then Cheryl Lanning, who's our Student Services Coordinator, announced there will be a school psychologist intern joining the staff from the University of Finley next year, and this opportunity is funded by the state of Ohio. In other news, Mrs. Lanning stated their department will be working on a graduation corrective action plan, which will allow alternative pathways to graduation. And essentially, this is to comply with a federal requirement, correct? Okay, so it's just something they have to go through.
State and federal, yes.
All right. And other discussion topics were transition planning among, Riverview, Buckeye, Melridge, because you have to move people to be able to do thus and so during construction, and then it's almost like dominoes, you keep moving people around. But, we're trying to minimize those moves, and so it's still in discussion. And then we talked about class size a little bit. It's continually monitored. Some classes are like on the cusp of either possibly having reduction or maybe having an additional teacher, so they monitor that. And obviously, we haven't even opened up kindergarten registration yet, but we don't know what will happen with kindergarten registration, because sometimes people don't sign up till the day before school starts. I know, so that makes it hard, but we're gonna continue to monitor that. Room usage and team teaching, that's come up. And, like, for example, there's an interest at Buckeye, and, whether we, before the new addition, having possibly an opening between two existing classrooms, but obviously going down the road, if we're gonna expand on this personalized learning or team teaching or whatever we're going to be doing, it won't all be in newer spaces, so we have to, think about that. And so that was a topic we discussed briefly. And then the state testing is going to be taking place when we return from spring break. And test results are usually received in the district by early June. Okay, that's all I have on that. And then the Buckeye Elementary Ad Hoc Committee met a couple times. We're going to be meeting again after spring break. And, continuing to discuss and define particulars as we work with Ryan Schmidt over at Then Design, so that we are comfortable with what's being proposed. And then the strategic plan liaison, I work with Dr. Rotino on that. We met briefly, but we probably should set another meeting up in your free time. Okay.
That would be focused again on an academic plan. So we
Yes,
can-
and that was part of that plan that you're gonna be outlining.
Absolutely.
So, okay, thank you.
The Policy Committee and Alumni Association Liaison.
So we have policy on today's agenda for first read, and we have a policy committee meeting April 2nd. Go over policy before it's put on for second. And then as far as alumni, met before the 75th anniversary party to finish planning for that event. And they did elect new officers at that event, and then they are starting to look to the summer, where they'll be looking at the golf outing and then also the alumni banquet in the future, so.
One thing we're working on the alumni is redoing the Hall of Fame that's in the building. We've talked to them about perhaps switching to a digital format display like we have for the Veterans Kiosk. That was actually designed by, he's now a former employee, but someone who worked for us. But he's willing to come back and, as a contractor to design that. So I'm working with alumni to talk about what that would look like. That would save them in costs, for buying 2 plaques. They would present the Hall of Fame recipient with a plaque, but then we would have just put a digital frame up there for them. And it also would save us space in the high school. As the Hall of Fame has grown quite large, and we are running out of wall space that is dedicated to it, so. I'm done.
And the Booster Organizations Liaison?
Sure, there's a lot to report. I'm going to go through our schools one by one. At Lamouth, April 3rd, they are having a skating party at City Skate. On April 6th, they will have their Sun Plus One bowling night at Rich's Lanes. On April 26th, an adult event will be Night at the Races at Layar in downtown Painesville. April 28th is their next AMSCO meeting at 7 p.m. in person, and May 2nd is their spring dance after school. At Buckeye, April 5th is a parents' night out, and on April 21st, they are having their Chuck E. Cheese Spirit Day. At Melridge Elementary, March 20th, is today the 21st? No, today's 20th. Tomorrow. So March 21st, they are having kindergarten pastries with parents. On March 27th, they have their Chick-fil-A Dine and Donate from 5 to 8 p.m. Please mention Melridge. March, they will also be having a spring plant sale. That might be postponed until April. That has yet to be determined what the dates are on that. April 7th, they are having their PTO meeting at 6:30. April, followed by conversations with Dr. Rattino at 7. April 22nd through the 24th, they are having their Scholastic Book Fair. On the 25th of April, they will have their Glow Dance, which is their father-daughter dance. And on April 26th, they are having Sun Plus One bowling. At Parkside Elementary, the week of April 7th, they are having their Scholastic Book Fair. April 14th is their PTO meeting at 7 p.m., and that one will be on Zoom. And on May 9th, they have their Mother-Son event. At Riverview Elementary, on March 30th, they have Five Below fundraiser, mention Riverview PTO. On April 6th, they have their Mother-Son Boy Bash. On April 9th, they also have Dine to Donate at Raising Cane's, mention Riverview PTO. On April 12th, they have their Adult Social Bingo at the Elks Lodge, 21 and over only, please. On April 16th, they have their PTO meeting in person. And on April 12th, we have our district Easter egg hunt at noon, which again, it will be over in less than 2 minutes. From some of our booster groups, I reached out to the booster groups. I got some responses from a couple. The Riverside Rebounders, which is our basketball, they wanted to let you know some of the things that they have been doing. So the varsity basketball won their WRC, and the Rebounders purchased t-shirts for the freshmen, JV, and varsity to celebrate the season. The shirts were designed by the RHS business class and designed by students and purchased through the Riverside store. The Rebounders paid for 28 student tickets to the home playoff games to encourage student support for the team throughout the playoffs. The Rebounders also provided monthly team dinners throughout the season. They had a bowling event to promote socialization among all levels of teams. We have 8 seniors from varsity who will be graduating this May. They registered and paid for summer leagues in Perry and Warrensville and a variety of summer tournaments for freshmen, JV, and varsity. So those will be coming up, paid for by Riverside Rebounders. And they are beginning planning for the 2nd annual Slam at the Dam 3-on-3 tournament, which was very successful this past season. Current team members and alumni volunteered to keep score and ref the games. And then I also heard back from Riverside Band Boosters. The Band Boosters wanted everyone to know that they support all students in 612 involved in all band programs in their pursuit of music education. They are considering a band shell for the marching band season for the stands outside, but they're having conversations with district for that to see if that might work, if it might not work, and the feasibility of that project. So that's on their agenda. And they want to promote the transition of music students to upper level opportunities after leaving Lamouth. 7th grade program, they want to continue to encourage participation in band. Numbers have been declining over the last couple of years as those students transition from 7th to 8th grade, and the boosters and staff are considering all ideas to ensure that participation is maximized. So if anyone has any ideas for that, you can let them know. That's all I have.
Yeah, when was the Melridge PTO meeting? And then you're speaking at 7?
April 7th?
April 7th.
April 7th. And then is there one for Parkside where?
There is, I don't have the date off the top of my head.
They don't have a date
It's in
yet.
May, though.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Superintendent's report?
Yeah, a lot of good things this month. First of all, on what's it, Tuesday, Mr. Keeney and I were down in Columbus at the State Legislative Conference. Basically, a lot of that information was focused on the biennial budget, what OSBA is, a combination between OSBA, the Treasurers Association, as well as the Superintendent's Association of Ohio, what they recommended. What they are looking for is they're looking for the organizations to, the request from those two organizations is that the governor or the state legislature update the inputs in the funding formula to adjust for inflation. For the Fair School funding formula, they've adjusted the outputs based on property taxes and income, but they've not adjusted the inputs, and they are strongly encouraging that for the formula to work. Mr. Placco can get into the details of that, as I know just a little bit about that. The ones that I did find really kind of interesting to watch along the way as this bill progresses through both the House and the Senate are the Principal Apprenticeship Program. That's something that we it deals with identifying leadership in your building and finding a alternate way for them to get licensed as principals to deal with the principal shortage. And it is a stipend that comes with it. So it's something that we are really watching along the way. The resident educator changes, they are making some changes to that, including right now they have that final assessment stricken from that program. Don't know if that's going to make it or not. The governor is recommending a universal diagnostic assessment for grades K to 3. We use the MAP right now. If you were to change that, we would have to buy it, as well as train all of our people on how to use it. They are recommending, and I am hoping that it gets removed. And just the fact that we have a diagnostic assessment out there as well. Transportation, we did mention that a little bit earlier. And then the other one that's on there is unused school facilities and the definition of that. That's becoming really problematic because the definition that lists right now in the budget is a school that was built that was only occupied by 65% of the students is considered, 65% of the students for which the school was built for would be considered unused. Well, a lot of districts throughout the state, we don't have that problem, but a lot of districts throughout the state are using those facilities for other things like health centers and things like that. So it definitely changes what is unused versus what's not as to what they were built for because of some of the retrofitting of the building. So it's one to follow. I think it will get removed because of some of the things that are out there. This was followed by a property tax overview from Dr. Howard Fleeter. For as smart as that man is, he's kind of witty too. And so he made some great comments, but he talked about the history of property taxes from 1975 all the way up till 2023 is the latest data, and some of the proposed relief plans that are in the Senate. His recommendation is the circuit breaker. That's actually House Senate Bill 271, which models after the Michigan. He said that's the best model because we are similar to Michigan in terms of demographics and all of that. And he talks about that then causes a tax relief to households which meet certain thresholds. So we don't want to overtax our seniors. It makes really sense with some of what that looks like, and that circuit breaker is one that he said what they're all saying from the State House is something is going to be done about property tax. The legislature is concerned about doing that. He presented the 4 different types that are up there and said the circuit breaker is the one that is really modeled after Michigan and would be the most or the least impactful to schools in the way that schools are funded. So, did I miss anything? Did I steal your legislative report?
No, you did
Okay.
very good. I'm going to add a couple of things when we get to that.
Okay,
No
perfect.
problem.
All right. As mentioned, we did have our staff PD celebration on March 3rd. It was the final one of the school year, the second of the semester. It was a great day. We started in the morning kind of wrapping up and kicking off actually next year's PD days, which are in August. But at the end of the day for the second half, we asked all 600 staff members to join us in the auditorium for kind of a celebration. One of the things that we really want to work on is our celebration of our staff members. So we celebrated those who have officially retired, announced their retirement. We kind of, along with Mr. Schlick, we put out a slide specifically for him. He's celebrating, or he's practicing for retirement right now. But we celebrated them, and then we also put together a slideshow. It wasn't a slideshow, it was a song that was generated by AI about just the staff at Riverside. It really went over to a lot of positive impacts. It was done in the theme of 80s hair metal. It really kind of came off well about Riverside staff and how good they are. And then we spent the last half of the day just going over, we put a bunch of, Dr. Malacca was able to put a bunch of time in putting these boards together for accomplishments that were celebrated throughout the year. We went over to the field house, had cake, because what's a party without cake? So we had cake and popcorn and just went and talked and really had some good, just good fellowship over there, looking at the things that happened and all that. So it was a great day. Also, as mentioned, I am doing my community conversations. I've hosted 2. One was at Buckeye and one was at Riverview. 2 more are on April 7th, and then May 19th, Ms. Brewster, is at Parkside.
Oh.
So that date's up there. I knew I had it somewhere. Just basically going over the great things we have at Riverside, and then giving some, kind of upcoming end of the year activities, some things we're excited about with that. Our second annual Senior Citizen Appreciation Night was held on March 13th with a great turnout, and kudos to our foods class for the presentation of the meal and serving and all that. It's an awesome thing to do for our community, and well received. And then they got to see SpongeBob the Musical, and congratulations to the theater students and staff. 4 shows throughout the weekend. I'll tell you, I was exhausted. I was in them. Dr. Malacca and I made cameos in it as pirates. We're actually the picture on the left. We're up there making fools of ourselves. We just did 4 numbers in maybe 2 minutes, and I was exhausted by the end. So I can't imagine how hard those kids work. And by the end of it, you heard them even my voice. I don't have a voice anymore. And you got to power through it for the second half. And boy, they did great. And it was a fun time, fun musical. Definitely, we should be in consideration for the Rodeo Cameo of the Year award for sure. Don't know if anyone can help with that in the audience, but also it was a great play, and kids did a great job. So, as I heard, Cameo of the Year was an award. That Saturday morning, we kicked off the morning of the play, the doubleheader with the play, with the 75th anniversary celebration. It was fantastic. Thank you to the Alumni Association as well as our student council for doing a lot of the heavy lift throughout making this successful. The halls were decorated with pictures of, they did the picture from the yearbook and then kind of recreated them, so then and now type pictures with current staff. They were really funny.
Yeah.
Kind of building was open for people to come and tour. Pancakes were amazing. Syrup from Lamouth, the trees of Lamouth, the syrup was made. I think Dr. Bassich is selling it on the side now at the black market along the way. But special, and then alumni or anyone who attended was able to sign one of 4 curated pieces of art by our students commemorating the event. Those will be hung somewhere throughout the building. We're still working on a place that does it, so thanks to Mrs. Bowe for that. And I can't thank enough Mrs. McIntyre, Mrs. Lucas, for all the hard work they put into organizing the event. The media center was turned into a museum of artifacts. Yearbooks were out there. We heard people coming back saying, "I found my dad in the yearbook. Boy, did he look different." So it was a great event. Kudos to our academic decathlon team. We can't brag enough about the high level of academics that happened at Riverside. They competed at the state competition, and we had 4 event medalists. Drew Costner had 2 gold medals. Sarah Harrington and Hunter Russell, they each had a gold medal, and Meredith Schaefer. Drew and Hunter finished 3rd overall in the state division, and Drew scored a new modern Riverside high score of 6,819.6 points. I don't know how they come up with that number, but good for him, and congratulations to them and Mr. Gisando, who is their advisor. So great job to that team, and way to represent Riverside. Congratulations to Indoor Track and Field for their success at state competition. The indoor track recently has put a state meet on. Allison Urbis had 6 in the 60-meter hurdles and PR'd with a time of 9.37, which is pretty fast, running 60 meters and jumping along the way. Mark Poggi was 2nd in the shot put with a throw of 53, 5 3/4 inches, which is a huge throw inside. Kendall McCaleb is 6th in the long jump and the 60-meter dash. And then Josh Porter was 10th in the shot put. So great job by all those athletes who got to compete at the state meet. That was inspiring. And congratulations to Riverview Elementary teacher Mrs. Lang for being recognized as the Ohio Lottery Teacher of the Month. And, we got more. I forgot about that one. And a lot of stuff, like I said. Sophia Freight was, she participated in the Rotary, the Painesville Rotary Club's debate test for the four-way test that she presented along the way. And then upcoming, here we go. Save the dates. Mrs. Grassi already hit on the egg hunt. April 12th is the annual egg hunt. Starts at noon, ends at 12:01. Get here early or go home empty. Friday, April 11th is the carnival. So the night before is the spring carnival. So you can tire your kids out, then bring them to hunt eggs the next day. Saturday the 26th is the craft show, which is in the RHS gym. And finally, our alumni and community choir is on, they are doing their concert on April 30th in combination with our high school choir. Rehearsal dates are on April 3rd, 12th, and 22nd. And if you're interested in participating, I will not be. But if you are interested in participating, Dr. Merlacher, visit the website to fill out the form. And I want to wish everybody a wonderful spring vacation, which starts at the end of school tomorrow and goes, technically it's Monday the 24th through the 28th. Classes are resumed on the 31st, and I hope you all have a safe, relaxing, and enjoyable, and well-earned and well-deserved spring vacation.
Thank you for that. Treasurer's report and committee update, Finance Audit Personnel Committee, Insurance Optimization Ad Hoc Committee, Legislative Liaison.
Okay, we held our meeting on March 13th. Again, personnel updates, pretty much typical turnover and postings for newer replacement positions. Recruiting efforts will be made with attendance at the noted job fair. I'm assuming that's Northern Ohio Teachers Association.
Northern Ohio Teacher Educator, I don't remember what it stands for.
It'll be an event that we maybe recruit some people from, I guess. So that will be ongoing. Board agenda item discussions included minor revisions to appropriations for fiscal year 2025, the acceptance of new tax rates from the county, additional contract services to the ESC of Northeastern Ohio for a substitute teacher pool, renewal of electrical power purchasing program, continued software licensing purchases, and bus fuel purchasing contract. Also, approval of a 6th grade camp at 4-H Camp Whitewood. I understand the cost to the districts will be reimbursed through fees, is that correct? Okay. And also purchase of upgraded Wi-Fi equipment, and that will be done in conjunction with a cost-sharing grant. Donations and retirements, do you have anything to say about those?
Congratulations.
Okay.
And thank you and congratulations. So thank you for the service and donations.
Okay. The Health Insurance Committee update. We're in the process right now of finalizing contract details for coverage and services. One contract will be related to services provided during the transition period to January 1st, 2026, and another contract for full services after that date. We're putting those details together, and we should have something hopefully for next meeting, if not the one after that. Dr. Rottino talked about the event in Columbus on Tuesday, and it was a very good presentation by all there. There was a lot to talk about in the budget. I think everything that has been proposed, for the most part, is very positive for education in Ohio. We'll see how that plays out. But again, the property tax changes were a main topic, and knowing that they have their eye on it, and it's what they're looking at is both within the current budget and outside of the current budget. So this is something that's going to be looked at quite a bit to try to find some relief for taxpayers. And one thing that this Dr. Freder, was it, or Fleeter mentioned was an interesting that in Ohio, the property and income tax, property tax and income tax is the main source of funding for schools. The majority areas east of I-71, if you go from Columbus to Cleveland, are funded by property taxes, whereas the majority of areas west of I-71 are funded by income taxes. And there's reasons for that due to land use and many other things. But so it is And is not, we have talked about income taxes, we have not looked at it in depth, but it is an alternative that we must consider for any future funding of the district. Here again, transportation issues are being studied in conjunction with the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. It's unclear what will emerge from those to better the transportation responsibilities, but hopefully districts will be properly reimbursed for the mandated requirements that they have. Also, career technical education is getting more focus, and proposals from the Ohio State Board Association will look at programs and facilities to support these education options. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Update from the treasurer.
Okay, as always, we'll go through our monthly financial reports. So for February 2025, you can find those reports on board docs and on the treasurer page on the website. The total cash balance of all of our funds is $27.3 million. Of that, the general fund makes up almost $14.2 million. The permanent improvement fund is almost $6.8 million, of which $2.4 million is encumbered already for current projects, and with $4.3 million unencumbered available for use, which would go towards the Riverview and CTE additions. Just as a heads up, we did not receive our property tax advance until the first business day in March. There was an issue with the treasurer's office. They sent it to us. They did not code it properly. It got sent back to the treasurer's office. So typically it comes around February 19th or so. It ended up hitting the first business day in March. So that's why the numbers are a little bit lower than we typically see at the end of February. Looking at our current appropriations and revenue estimates, we are 66.67 or 2/3 through fiscal year 2025. Our revenue is trending at 50%, and that's most likely because of all the waiting on the property tax advance to come in March, and we also got our settlement this week, so all that came in the month of March. And then expenditures are at 62.8% right now. Looking at our revenue for February is $889,000 for the general fund. The biggest source is being $668,000 in unrestricted state foundation payments. That's our funding from the state of Ohio. Interest revenue for February is just over $46,000. The Star Ohio interest rate's at 4.48%. Red Tree's currently earning 3.93 for an overall yield of 4.13%. And our expenditures for February at about $4.5 million for the general fund. State budget update, not much to report other than the House is expected to release their version of the budget on April 1st. Happens to be April Fool's Day, so I guess we'll see what happens on that day. At this point, I'm not sure what to expect. We'll kind of see as it comes out. Just other updates real quick. Our fiscal year 2024 audit was released by the Auditor State's Office this past Tuesday. So that's available on the Auditor State's website. I'll also post a version on our website as well when I have time. I was told we qualified for the Auditor State Award. I'm just waiting to receive the actual award. This year would make 10 years in a row of clean audits. So I was excited to report that. Next up was to talk about the Permanent Improvement Fund forecast. I will hand out what I prepared for today's meeting. Obviously, we made a change at the beginning, but this is the same forecast that was passed out during the Finance Committee meeting that we recently had. So I wanted to just pass this out, kind of run through it real quick just so you can understand what you're looking at. We're obviously noting the one change for the bus purchases. So on this report, it's 2 pages. The 5 columns to the right show 5 years of actual history of revenue and expenditures. The middle column for current year 2025 includes the revenue estimates, obviously, and then all the expenditures that have already occurred this fiscal year and all of the encumbrances, anything that's been committed for any projects that are currently ongoing. You'll notice in the future years this will bleed into the next year, but we have to account for all the encumbrances in the current fiscal year because we need to account for that to certify contracts that there's funds available. So fiscal year 2025 will change because when we update going to next fiscal year, we'll only keep what's the actual expended amount, and the rest will carry forward. So looking at the current fiscal year, once we account for all of the current expenditures, and then we also have estimates in there for the career tech addition. We have an estimate from the construction manager. We take out the $2,025,000 portion of the grant, career tech grant that will be charged to a different fund. The remaining portion with a 4% added onto it just for a buffer for in case it comes over budget or some change orders. It's about $1.1 million. We also have to purchase furniture for that addition as part of our commitment to the grant, and we have estimated $200,000 for that. We have the Riverview estimate in there of $4.6 million. That's basically the estimate we got from the construction manager plus 4% for that as well. And then we'll be utilizing some funds from that we have set aside from the sale of Haddon and Hill Road and those facilities previously. And then $250,000 set aside for a parking lot at Riverview. We don't have a true estimate on that yet, it's just a placeholder, which brings our unencumbered fund balance down to about $40,000. We do have an encumbrance in here for architect fees for, when we did the career tech contract with the architect, we talked about doing some other improvements in the high school. That scope has been limited, and I'm not sure, so some of the money's encumbered for TDA for that. Those improvements that we're no longer doing can come off at some point. In the future projected years, the numbers, I kept all the numbers the same as I presented this past fall, putting placeholders for our typical spending. You know, I have the 4 school buses a year is obviously the most significant piece on there. I also have $400,000 set aside for technology equipment, including Chromebooks and view boards. If you look at the history, it's much lower because during the previous fiscal years, we had the federal stimulus money, and we used a lot of federal grants to replace all of our Chromebooks, teacher laptops, and wireless technology, and different things throughout the facilities. So that's why you look at the history, you don't see a whole lot of history in that line item on the first page. It looks larger going forward just because those expenses didn't hit the permanent improvement fund. Also, this you know, for Buckeye Millers, we assumed a $12 million borrowing for 25 years. I used 25 years because Priscilla provided a 25-year borrowing estimate for the most recent one. So that was my good numbers I had at this time. Obviously, the scope of the project is still to be determined, and those will be adjusted accordingly as we know a little bit more. Also, the football turf is projected in fiscal year 2028. You know, it does not, if we are able to secure another sponsorship like we did previously, that number will be reduced as well.
One quick note on that. Do we have 200,000 of that set aside?
It's around to that. There's in Fund 003, we receive some revenue from the cell phone towers each month, so that goes into that fund.
Yeah. So that number would really be about 600.
No.
This was on top of that
That's on
money.
top of it.
So I think do you remember the estimate we had for the turf replacement?
Last fall, Vasco estimated roughly $850,000 at that market price.
Okay, so you're figuring $1 million
Yeah.
for
I
future
figured $1 million.
spending. Okay.
And that doesn't include a sponsorship that you would anticipate that would reduce that cost?
If we can secure a sponsorship, yes, it does
Yeah.
not include that.
And the
You can't
norm,
include the unknown.
and
I know.
the norm in the past was about half. I know you said you were hoping for full sponsorship, but,
We're always hoping.
right.
I think the normal last year, the last time it was a 10-year, I want to say,
It was a 10-year sponsorship.
Sponsorship
It was
was
230,000,
yeah.
I think it was.
but then it was 230, but it was also, there were other ancillaries a part of it as well, that, training services, for instance, that we don't have to pay for. So there were other parts that kind of, they were not direct costs, but they would have been.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
So I can update this based on what was approved tonight and just show what the difference looks like. Mrs. Grassi also asked me to kind of extrapolate out a 10-year forecast, assuming a 3% inflation amount based on FY26 numbers. I'm going to pass that out just for reference. We can review that and we can discuss, you know, if we want to, or we can hold off and kind of digest a little bit. I did put in a 1% increase in revenue based on some growth that we would get in our property tax revenue from new construction, just based on historical averages. So if we're gonna inflate have inflation accounted for on the expense side, figure we add that to the revenue side. Interest income is a little bit tricky to project, because I had it declining each year with a declining cash balance, and when I got to FY '31, I kind of just flatlined it at that point, just because interest rates are gonna change, we're not sure what that looks like. And so it was just a rough guess at this time.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Because we have this section that's on the first page that's in gray, and on either one of these, we don't include any, we're not including any costs for anything that we would normally have in our PI fund. Capital projects that would have to be done at the schools, regardless of the fact that we're building new buildings or whatever, like we still have capital projects and there's no repairs listed on here. So either we're not doing any at all for the next 10 years, or we're funding them out of the general fund, which is not in our budget to do so. So
We typically do some repairs out of general fund each year as part of the annual maintenance budget.
But when we look at historically, right, we're doing dollar work and it's got value in it.
Right.
To the tune of a couple $100,000 at least, at minimum, in those areas. And to not include it in here, I think gives us an inaccurate picture and also increase those for inflation. So I know when I ran my stuff, I actually included those because I wanted to see what that would look like, because it's not like we're not going to spend in those areas. And so it might be helpful if we include some of that for our next conversation. I think that would be important. Basically the way I look at this is that we are taking this $825,000 based on Mike Frisella's information on the COPS financing. And it's unvoted bond levy financing, which we are allowed to do because we have resources available to borrow against. But if in fact we don't have enough money, when you add all those other things in that we may need to add into this projection just to see where we are going to sit, which is why I want to talk about the PI budget, because I don't think it will be positive once we include all those things that we probably would spend. Those dollars then almost become voted millage, because instead of asking for bond levy financing for these items, right, for the improvements that we're doing for the building, we would then be having to ask for millage financing to increase millage to pay for the rest of the expenses that come out of the PI fund. Because if we don't do that, then we're pushing those dollars, any negative number is going to get pushed off into the general fund. I want to make sure that we look at this as a whole, and I feel like we really do need to put some numbers in this gray area because there's nothing there. And we know where to spend it.
Yeah.
Right?
In a previous version that I presented last fall, before we moved forward with the Buckeye edition, the Rotary one, they were left blank because there was a line at the bottom available for other projects to be determined, and I didn't really want to change some of the projections going forward just arbitrarily. And so that's why it was grayed out. It doesn't mean and those numbers vary wildly each year as opposed to other things, but I totally understand what you're saying.
I mean, like when I look at repairs, and I went through and I looked at the capital projects, okay, so we had, $2.1 million in capital projects for the year ended in June of '25. Even if I put zeros across my calculations, if I look at the repairs, it was $322,000, and so if you start to increase that by inflation, I mean, by the time you get to 2036, it's $446,000. You start subtracting that, exponentially, you start eating up your cash. And so I think it's important to see that and where that leaves us, because if there is no money to do anything, I think that's important to know, right? So I'm hopeful that we can get that information added into here, because once we do that, these numbers go from positive numbers to drastically negative.
Okay, thank you for the update. public participation. Anyone wishing, I'm sorry?
I have,
Oh, you have a question?
yeah. So I just wanted to ask about 2 items on the first handout. Let me see. So the Hatton sale, was that the 670, no, is that the,
So if you're looking on the second page, there's
Second
negative
page.
672,000.
yeah, the 672?
That's the proceeds that are in a separate fund from Haddon, Hale Road, Leroy, and, yeah, from those facilities, we sold
Okay.
those facilities and land.
So that's
So it's
part
a-
of the PI, obviously.
It's a separate
set
PI
aside.
fund, but it's.
And what are
it's
you
still a-
using, what are you anticipating using that for?
That's just going towards whether it's the Riverview or Career Tech additions, is where, well, either project, I didn't really
Okay.
designate which one, it's just we're gonna be.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you were using that for future returfing or for CTE or Riverview. I just am asking,
Yeah, it's for either CT or Riverview.
any of it.
One of those.
Okay, and then there was another question about the high, wait a minute, I have to use a paper here to keep my lines straight.
It's a lot of
The
info.
high-quality instructional materials, grades 6 to 8, the 250?
Yeah, that's a real rough estimate, that's for the 7th and 8th grade.
It'll be 7th and 8th grade since we
So-
purchased.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you
so
want to have
6.
that discussion now, because 250, I mean, tonight there's a proposal for 171, but then instructional materials, typically, depending on what we're talking about, if it's consumables like workbooks for students that get used up each year, that would be a general fund item, not a permanent
We
improvement.
haven't picked the program for 7th and 8th grade yet, so we'll be starting that process in the fall. That's a placeholder, I believe, to buy materials. So I don't know, I have no idea. I couldn't even ballpark what it'll be, because I don't know what program we're going to select.
Okay, well, you know, I received the invoice from CPM. And, you know, in this, now tonight you told me you're only going to do 8th grade? What are you doing as
So
far as
that's the
algebra?
quote, not an invoice. So that's the quote for
The quote,
CPM that you
the quote.
have in your hands.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's math curriculum.
Yes,
So
and that is a
different-
math curriculum, so we're talking about 2 different things here. So the math curriculum is, we need to purchase, we need to make a decision, because we don't have anything in place for next year. So we either have to continue with what we have, or we're going with this new program for 6th or 8th grade, which is what we talked about at the programs meeting. The 250 is a different, that's to finish off buying the reading curriculum for next year, which we talked about, buying a program for our 7th and 8th grade language arts classes.
Okay. All right, so I guess my question is that, you know, typically permanent improvement money is used for something that lasts 5 years or more. You know, and when you're talking about workbooks or even a digital, like,
License.
you know, like renewing a license for some digital thing that's just for a year, that comes out of general fund. So I guess my question is, so I have 2 questions now. For this quote,
For the math curriculum.
yeah,
For
for
this
the
year,
math
that
curriculum.
we're looking to purchase now.
When you say 171, that's still the same number, but you're limiting it as far as algebra for just honors?
It's, the actual quote is significantly lower, I'm sorry, I'm gonna step on you.
That's okay.
That includes algebra, and a lot of that will actually come out of general fund because it is licenses and workbooks, as we discussed, so it's a general fund. I think we calculated the number that would come out of PI to be about 25,000
Yes.
at a very high number, and those would be the manipulatives. There's a set of textbooks for students in the algebra class, like a classroom set. They still get the digital set as well, but sometimes you have to have a book, so it'd be 30 books for the classroom that we're using it in. And it will not be all algebra moving forward for next year, it'll just be 8th grade algebra, so it's significantly less on that. We had them quote out all of algebra, and it's just 6th, 7th, and 8th, and our 8th graders who are in algebra will take, so it's about 2 sections worth, but 1 teacher, so 30 rooms. So it'll be significantly less, and the impact to PI, like I said, are just the manipulatives and in the actual physical textbooks. Everything else comes out of general, whether it's a fee or whether it's a subscription.
Okay, so, I guess, like, if what we're approving tonight, because I have to recommend it, of $171,317.08, about 25,000 is coming out of PI, the rest is coming out of general fund.
Correct.
Okay, and then what about, like, teachers' manuals, are those considered, you know, whatever teacher materials, is that part of that 25? Or, I guess, what's in the 25? Wait, let's ask it like that.
Those are classroom kits, manipulatives, as well as textbooks.
So it's textbooks, not.
It is a physical,
Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
textbooks can be bought, there are only certain things that can be bought out of PI. And
Yeah.
textbooks are the ones that can, because they do last more than.
Okay, so then the training and all that is a general fund?
Correct. If we end up needing to pay for it, if we're able to get into trainings that already exist, there may not be a cost to us. But professional development typically comes out of Title II funds.
Which would be a federal.
Not always, or general fund, do you know what I
Okay.
mean? But it does not come out of PI.
Okay, because, yeah, part of that discussion I had about the training, the ongoing training with teachers, it was very helpful to partner with the school doing it, and that, I can't remember, there was Hudson, I'm not sure, but they, let's say, partnered with WestG. And so that was just an example of how that looked, because it's just a collaborative thing, and there was no pay, it was an expense, not an expense.
The way CPM will send out trainers as well, I think we have to pay maybe travel, but they will send them out to go into the classroom. They will have local ones and, well, retired teachers who have taught in the program.
Okay,
Will come out and do it, so that's a part of the support. There's a lot of support with this program, to make sure that it's implemented with fidelity.
okay. So then the continuation of the reading program, that's the other thing you're talking about here. That was the 250,000. Can you tell me about that?
We need to pick a reading program for our 7th and 8th graders. So we purchased K3 last year.
Yeah,
No, K2
Right.
last year, 3-6 this year.
yeah, right,
Right?
right.
Okay, and with the understanding that 7-8 would be happening next year. So we
Okay.
have to decide, we have to pick several programs to choose, same process that we did to pick the 3-6. We'll have teachers maybe pilot some stuff, look at the programs, and decide, probably be making a recommendation, I would guess, in January or February of
Yeah,
next year.
because it says fiscal year '26,
Mhm.
so it might not start until what?
Oh, it won't, so we would be making the recommendation in winter, spring of next year with the idea that we would be implementing in the fall of 27.
26, 27.
Okay, so when.
I already can't keep the years
When
straight.
we purchased these reading materials, did it all come out of PI, or did some of it come out of general? I just am
The
asking.
K2 was out of, we were given money from the state, for that, and then the rest was out of PI, I believe.
Most of them.
Most of it, yeah,
Because
because,
it's only
Was
when we're
it-
allowable to charge a PI.
Right.
We can't charge licenses to PI.
so it would just be like classroom libraries or actual textbooks. If we pick one that's got a consumable, that would have to go to fees.
Right,
So
okay.
it would depend also on the program.
Okay,
And a lot of these programs have both with them, so they have the classroom library, or the classroom book set, and then also the consumable.
okay,
There is a chance at the 7th and 8th grade level that we could be looking at a digital platform. I just don't know that.
Yeah,
yet.
I
You
know.
what mean?
We're
'Cause
not
we
there
haven't-
yet.
Yeah, we
Okay.
haven't looked
You
at
still
the
need
programs.
books. Some people just, like the book. So.
right, exactly. Okay, any other questions about that? Because I needed that explanation, and I wanted to clarify what was PI and what was general fund. Okay.
So when we look at this forecast, even in the forecast that doesn't have the gray areas filled in, we're leaving ourselves with $40,000 this year to carry over to next year. We have a negative number for next year, and obviously that can change. And apparently, without any discussion about what kinds of things we would like to see either removed or postponed or whatever, we just decided that we're not gonna purchase buses. So apparently that will take care of our fiscal deficit in this PI fund for 2026 year end. I just have some concerns about the fact that we're going to be doing things like that in order to facilitate the funding of a building, period, for 25 years. That we're going to continually be looking at, what do I need to cut out of this budget of regular and recurring PI expenses for a building that we are financing out of already requested dollars from the public. And when we asked for those dollars, it was to fund the things that are generally regular and recurring expenses that come out of our PI fund. So we just voted to take buses out of 2026, but that doesn't solve that issue going forward. So there's still negative numbers on here.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, under 26 here, the projected deficit is $321,000, is that correct?
That's what it says.
Yes.
Okay, now with that 520 removed, is that what you're going to do, the top number?
Yeah, we put us at 200,000 positive.
So we would be positive for that year. We're positive for 27. 28, we're negative by $353,000 due to that $800,000 expenditure on the field, correct?
Right. And that, everything carries, the cash balance will carry forward, so removing the buses, that negative will be corrected that year, but then.
There'll be some adjustment there,
There'll be
but
some adjustment.
there'll still be a negative. And then we move into fiscal year 29, we show about a $6,500 positive. So we get out of that deficit, we have a one-year deficit, correct? That's shown here?
But I will tell you, we still don't have any of these gray items filled in. That is concerning and should be concerning to this district. It's empty.
And then in 2030, we're showing almost $316,000 positive, and that only increases from there on. So we have a one-year dip essentially due to replacing the athletic field. Am I reading that kind of correctly?
Yes, it is, those are low balances to have in the fund, so
Right.
it's
But I
concerning.
mean, that's just, for a couple of years, we're a little tight, and then things increase.
I'm gonna say it again, we don't have any of the items in gray completed in any of these forecasts. None. Repairs, maintenance, it's 350,000 at least at a minimum in any given year, and you can go back and look at that on a historical basis, and we're not including any of it. Any of it. How is our maintenance department supposed to do any work? They can't buy anything, like, unless we're going to go back and say, well, too bad, we're not gonna fund it here, we'll fund it out of our general fund, which is already in deficit spending also. So I'm not sure which problem we're trying to kick the can down the road, or well, I don't see it here, but I'm gonna see it over there because you don't have it in here. You can't have it both ways. We have to look at the entire process, and we're not doing that, which isn't very responsible of us. We're pretending it doesn't exist. We're pretending those expenditures don't exist. Mr. Placco, eventually we're going to have numbers in those gray boxes.
Right.
And I would like us to actually try and estimate those, which is what I did when I did my own homework and did my own spreadsheet. But I put some numbers in there, and I said, well, what is it for the past couple years? This is what it's gonna be, and again, increasing it for inflation, just like you did with the rest of this. It's going to have an effect. I don't care how many buses we don't buy this year, it's not fixing the entire problem. We put and decided as a board to put on a facility I can't afford to pay for 25 years. got a problem with that.
And we're gonna be meeting with that gentleman again, once we have some numbers, as Roger had discussed. Once we have a better idea, we will, and we'll have some real numbers and know, determine what we're gonna do as far as number of years. But right now, we don't have that information.
Correct. We don't have the, until the scope of work is finalized. we
Yeah.
have an estimate. It's-
Right.
Right now, it's in.
Right, and so until,
Right, and as
until,
far as the work, the decisions to be made going forward, it's adding on to Buckeye, but there's going, and that's like usually $500 a square feet. But then you've got, renovations that are gonna take place on the interior. There'll be some things done at Melridge as well, but that's at $250 a square foot. So the question is, to what degree, because obviously we're going to involve Rich a lot, we're going to look at the engineering study, what can we pull in to those renovations, they're gonna be part of that. And what can we afford to borrow and all that. So we'll have a better idea.
Roger's not aware of those additions. You heard him say it just today, that he's looking at Buckeye as a set of classrooms, that's all.
Well, initially, yeah, right.
Well, okay, so he's,
I clarified that, what was his initial scope before.
right.
That's part one, then there's part two.
Well, and part two isn't included in here, so we are going to be we are spending money, we have put the cart well before the horse. We have decided to put on an addition in a building for which we cannot afford. I don't know anybody who can look at this and say, I would run my household like this, you're crazy. We cannot afford this, $825,000. I don't care if it says $800,000, I don't care if it says $750. At the end of the day, we cannot continue to suck the money out of our PI fund and say, oh, well, we're never going to do any more repairs to any of our other buildings. That's how we got in, that is what we have been accused of from the get-go. And yet, but it's okay when it's not proposed by, I don't know, a different board. I'm confused. I'm just literally confused on how we think that we can do that. Eventually, we're gonna have numbers in here. I'd like to see this with numbers in it.
So,
And we're voting today. There's an agenda item on here today to move forward with Buckeye, and yet we have not figured out how we're paying for this. What do people not understand?
So we've had this discussion before.
But we have not had this discussion
And-
before. This is the first
and
time
Ms.
we're ever
Ms.
discussing
Grassi-
about finances,
And Ms.
Mr.
Grassi,
Official.
you continue to ignore the discussions we've had in the past.
I am not
And-
ignoring a darn thing.
And you just said you don't understand what's going on. So the construction project is not just limited to 8 classrooms and a gymnasium. Okay, it's a much larger
I
project.
don't care
than
what
that.
it includes. We can't afford it.
Okay, so we'll try to have a conversation.
We can't.
You don't want to have a conversation, so let's move on.
yeah, I had a question
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
Gary. All right, so initially with the PI levy, because some of us are newer, when it passed, it was collecting how much, and how much are we collecting now? And that changes based on,
It originally was supposed to collect around 2.5 million a year when it was first passed. It was passed in, it went into effect, I think, tax year 2015, it started collecting in 2016. It had replaced the prior PI levy that was about 1.89 mils, this one's 2.5. That was a decision the prior board made. There was the bond issue basically from back when the media center conditions were put on the schools. It was passed in 1994. That bond millage was coming off the tax rolls, and then the PI levy was put on to be a minimal change to the taxpayers, but it'd be an increase to the PI fund. So it was originally about 2.5 million, and it's collecting about 2.6 to 2.7 right now.
so currently it's collecting 2.6 or 7.
Yeah,
not
it's probably
2.5.
closer to 2.7, maybe a
Yeah,
little.
it's real
Last year
close.
it collected 2.7 and 3 million.
So that, the reason it went up from 2.5 to about 2.7 is because of new houses that were built?
Correct.
Okay. And there are new houses scheduled to be built that are not part of the TIF or a RID, right?
Correct.
And so as those houses get built over the next couple of years, those will also be paying PI money to the district. And none of that is forecast because you don't know the amount of the houses or
Right.
the price of the sale price of the houses. Is that correct?
In the first handout, yeah, it was just flat lines. In the other handout, there's a 1% built in there, so it's,
1% for,
and that's based on historical, how we got to where we are today.
right. And so, as those houses get built, the number will grow. And have you done any rough figuring to see about what it'll grow to?
I mean, I just did the 1% projection, so it's just based on historical.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's possible with the houses that are being built that we could be at 2.9 or $3 million in the PI fund after those projects are completed.
that would be, yeah, I mean, it's speculative, it's.
Right.
you know, it's-
Right.
So,
So I mean, we had discussed that before, and that's about, you know, those numbers will come in, and it'll take a couple years, really, because these projects are getting ready to get started. And then we're not talking about nor projecting the casement development and the revenues that are gonna come from that. Now, that doesn't start for about 2 years, but then those revenues start. And then, but that's another topic of discussion. There's a lot of moving parts. There's things that aren't figured in.
And that money from the TIF goes into the general fund, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so that will help
Right.
offset some things.
you know, Mr. Platco could do a forecast for this PI budget and put whatever numbers he wants to in that line item, in the revenue column. Would that be prudent? Probably not. Would he stake his licensure and reputation on it? Probably not. So he's being conservative, which is what I would expect him to be. He's doing his job. He's doing his job. I mean, you can't predict what's going to happen, and I would not expect us to be spending money based on well, I think it'll be there.
Yeah, and that's not what we're saying. So, all right, so is there anything else that wants to be said?
I'd like to just ask a question. I was reading through the auditor's report here, and there was a highlighted paragraph. It says, on February 2nd, 2015, the school district issued $928,500 in school energy conservation improvement bonds for the purpose of energy improvements throughout the school district. The primary source of repayment of this obligation is through energy savings as a result of the improvements. These improvements were not capitalized. The bonds were issued for a 15-year period with a final maturity of December 1st, 2029. The bonds will be repaid from the general fund. So essentially, we took out bonds for less than $1 million expenditure for a 15-year
That was
repayment schedule. Do you have any idea on
I do.
what our interest rate on that was and what our, total price to us will be?
That was prior to my arrival here, but that was.
That was a House Bill
project.
260, whatever, I don't remember what the name
House
of the
Bill
House Bill was,
264
but it was a financing project that you paid for your bond with energy savings.
Do we have the records on how much we saved and how much our payments are? Do we have it documented, those energy savings documented?
I
That
believe
we're- that with-
believe we're required to report that, so I would assume that Mr. Platco should probably be able to find that information. I'm sure he probably doesn't have it right here at his disposal.
I'd like, for less than $1 million, I can't understand why we went 15 years out, and the interest, what that interest rate is, and what our total cost, overall cost, because it has to be well in excess of $1 million. But that would have really only come out to $62,000 a year if we just paid cash. So I don't quite understand the thought behind that, other than it was something that was sold to the district, maybe by the state. But I'd just like to see what that interest rate was, what our savings were in energy costs, and if those energy savings really did or really are repaying that loan. So if you get that together sometime, I'd appreciate it.
So you have a yearly report on that you report to the state?
I haven't done one, so I'm not really sure. I can look back to some prior records to see what was done previously.
Are we supposed to report every year?
I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
I know a lot of schools did that program at the time. How they handled it bookkeeping wise, I don't know. But I don't know how lucrative it was as far as savings. Yeah.
Okay, public participation. Anyone wishing to address the Board of Education will be recognized by the board president. Speakers are requested to speak from the podium, identify themselves and their topic. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Come to the podium, sir.
Yeah, Brian Massey, 8196 Rainbow Drive. Just let you know, Mr. Official, that there is a grassroots movement throughout the state of Ohio for a citizens-led initiative to eliminate property taxes throughout the state of Ohio. I went to, a couple weeks ago, I went to the Budget Commission meeting, and all 9 Lake County school districts were there. I did get copies of the tax budgets submitted by each one of the CFOs. I have asked Mr. Platko for more details because those summaries really don't tell you anything. What I'd like to see is basically the details of each one of the funds, the general fund, your improvement fund, and your bond fund. I want to see the details on it. What I've been told by the state reps and the auditors, I'm complaining that the Budget Commission, there are no checks and balances in our system for to ensure that the taxing authorities are good stewards of the taxpayers' money. It's not only school districts, but also some 54 different taxing authorities in Lake County. When I hear what's happening here tonight, I'm thankful that you appear to be going through the general ledger, looking at the expense structures. I'm very anxious to hear what Mr. Keeney has to say regarding the medical insurance. I'm hoping that you're doing the due diligence, for the taxpayers to make sure that we have not been overspending. I'm a little confused about all the building going on, I must say. Because I seem to remember we used to have a school called Haddon, and we sold it. I'd like to know details on that sale, Mr. Official. When we sold it, how much did we sell it for? Because as I understand it, it is still being used as a school. So there must have been some compelling reasons why we had to sell the school, and now we're going to replace the classrooms at probably a much greater expense. Thank you very much.
My name is Marcia Pesic. I live in the Riverside School District and have for over 20 years. I've had children go to the Riverside schools. I'm speaking today because I'm very concerned about private school vouchers in our state, and I would like the Riverside School District to join the fight against vouchers by joining the group called Vouchers Hurt Ohio. Vouchers Hurt Ohio is a growing coalition of public school districts in our state that have come together to sue the state over the unconstitutional and harmful EdChoice private school voucher program. Already there are almost 300 school districts in Ohio that have joined this coalition. That's almost half of all the school districts in Ohio. When we let vouchers drain funds from our public schools, our kids suffer, students don't have the resources they need to succeed, and we are all hurt as a result. Vouchers started as a pilot program, but quickly ballooned out of control as lawmakers continue to change the criteria for eligibility. The program has grown from $42 million in 2008 to up to $1 billion with a B in the current 2-year budget. EdChoice vouchers are a refund and rebate program. There are no caps on income or spending in the Universal Voucher Plan in Ohio. If someone applies, even if they're a millionaire or a billionaire, they are eligible for a private school voucher. Money for vouchers for private schools comes from the same line item in the state budget that pays for public schools. $1 more for private school vouchers is $1 less available to pay for public schools. This drain comes at a time when public school districts like Riverside and all across the state are struggling to pass local levies to pay for classrooms, transportation, renovations, new buildings, all to improve safety and learning conditions for their students. Our students are counting on us. Things are only going to change if educators, school boards, and families across the state stand up and say something. I am asking the Riverside School Board to discuss vouchers at their next meeting and vote to join Vouchers Hurt Ohio Coalition. This organization will bring the argument before the Ohio Supreme Court and rein in out-of-control voucher program that's hurting our kids and our schools. Among the almost 300 school districts in Ohio that have joined the fight are Aurora, Chardon, Cuyahoga Falls, Geneva, Hudson, Mayfield, Medina, Olmsted Falls, Richmond Heights, Shaker Heights, Twinsburg, Wickliffe. I could go on, you get the idea. I'm asking the Riverside School District to join this fight. You can go to vouchershurtohio.com for more information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Donna Lino. I live right around the corner and my son attends Riverview Elementary. I would like to take a different direction and speak directly to the taxpayers and the administration. Let's start with facts. In this current situation, our voice doesn't matter. Our vote does not matter because the board has made up their mind even before any discussion has happened. So it doesn't matter who they hire for communications, project managers, or even what they put on the board communications. It's clear that the only solid decision made by this board is to bankrupt our school district. But then what happens to our children? I would like to ask everyone to look around and realize that if these decisions are made now, none of us will be sitting here in the next 5 to 10 years because we will not be a Riverside school district. We will be gone. Bankrupt. Dr. Ratino, are you okay with this? Mr. Platko, you looked really uncomfortable earlier. It won't be the board's faces on that report, it'll be yours. The community needs their voice back. Our kids need the stability, trust, and collaboration back to thrive in an already really hard world. I know the board isn't listening, but I hope the community and the administrative team are. Again, I know this is a horrible position where your family's incomes are at stake, but Dr. Ratino and Mr. Platko, are you okay with all the financial decisions made by this board? We, the community, would like an answer for the sake of our children, their educational, financial, and social futures. Are you okay with and can you stand behind all the financial decisions made by this board? Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Consent agenda, finance and audit.
I'd like a motion to approve items A through K listed on the finance audit consent agenda as recommended by the treasurer. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion?
I'd like to thank the Danaher Foundation for their donation to the Lemuth Office Activity Fund and the donation from Melridge staff to the Riverside Melridge Cafeteria Angel Fund in memory of Kobe Lumen. So thank you.
Thank you. Gary, take the roll.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Lori Krenisky,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Denise Brewster.
Aye.
Motion carried. Commercial increase complaint.
This is a resolution authorizing filing of a complaint against the valuation of real property for tax year 2024 against permanent parcel number 08A004A00190. This is a commercial property that's sold at a high dollar value, and the county has it listed as a much lower value, so the district is filing a complaint against the current valuation on that property. So do I have a motion for this,
Take a second.
or a second?
I'll second it.
Any other discussion?
It's the commercial property, correct, Mr.
Commercial,
Clerk?
property. We don't file increased complaints
I didn't think
against
so.
residential homes.
Is there some further information on this? Does
There
anyone
was a-
know anything about it? Who was it recommended by to file?
Our attorney, David Rose with Burns and McIntyre and Seed, looks for these parcels. There's a full formal resolution that's attached to it in board docs that has more information on, and this is common for school districts that review commercial sales and look for if there's a large disparity between what a property sells for at an arm's length transaction compared to what the county auditor values of that. School districts typically file increased complaints on that. And I think, Dan, if you know, it's what, 500,000 is the current threshold. There's more than a $500,000 difference. There was a recent law passed a few years ago that limited the ability, but on the larger ones, there's larger disparities. It's around $500,000 increase.
And it recently sold?
Yes. It's based on something that happened during 2024.
Okay. It recently sold for a much lower price than,
Much higher price than the county auditor valued it
okay, oh, so the auditor, after the sale, valued it at a much lower value.
at. The county auditor's office doesn't typically change values based on sales. That's where the school districts get involved.
Is there any further discussion? Can you call the roll?
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consent agenda personnel.
Okay. A second to a motion to approve the items A through D listed on the personnel consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Okay, please take the roll.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Lori Kniske.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consent agenda curriculum.
Okay, I make a motion to approve items A and B listed on the curriculum and programming consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Blackwell, will you call the roll, please?
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Lori Kniske,
Aye.
Scott Fishel.
Aye. Motion carried. School calendar discussion.
This is just a public opportunity for discussion on the 2026, 2027 school calendar that was posted to board docs. We keep it open for 30 days. For any discussion, they can send comments to myself. Students start on the 20th, and because of the way that the Easter holiday falls within spring break, they actually end on the 27th of May, in 2 years from now.
So I know this is really a silly early question. Do we know when graduation will be then as a result? Like, I know that's, we're thinking way too far in advance.
So this year is the first time we put it on a Thursday night. We actually get a reduced rate because it's on a weeknight, so it will more than likely be on a weeknight as well. Probably the 27th, if I were to guess.
Like the day before?
Like
The last day of school, like.
the last
don't they
day of school
usually
is the
get-
27th.
Right, don't they usually get done earlier than that?
We have the last couple of days, it's been on the same last day as students.
Okay.
So it will be the 26th or 27th, most likely the 27th, with the rain day being the 28th.
Don't anybody quote him on that. Like,
Yeah, I do not schedule that,
I
I
was
just work with, yeah.
curious, like considering that we're gonna be done earlier than Memorial Day that year.
This year graduation is on the 29th,
Right.
so it's only,
My
it's where
birthday.
Memorial Day's late. It was a weird year. Memorial Day was late, Easter was really early with spring break.
Next year?
No, 2 years, this is 2 years out.
Right, like,
So,
right,
yeah, we have
it's-
next year set. We're trying to be 2 years out because there's a lot of positive feedback from coming with that, so. There might be some adjustments made to it, but we're coming up with a proposal and going forward.
Okay, and then we have a policy agenda.
So there's a resolution to adopt the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce's special education model policies and procedures.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mr. Placco, can you call the roll?
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Lori Knessky,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney.
Aye.
Motion carried. First reading of new revised board policies.
When is our policy meeting? Your
April
policy meeting.
2nd.
April 2nd. Can we send questions, concerns, issues, like for
Please do.
discussion for your meeting?
Please do.
I just want to, I know I sent this to Dr. Rottino already. The policy 7421 prohibits the district from building multi-use bathrooms, yet we're building these bathrooms in our classrooms in the additions in Riverview and perhaps Buckeye, I don't know, I haven't seen that yet, but since this policy indicates that we can't do that with the exception of family restrooms, and family restrooms wouldn't be included in restrooms that you're actually putting in a classroom, we wouldn't be able to consider that a family restroom. I question, like, we either have to fix that policy, which is recommended by the state, I mean, that's purported, like, we have to pass that as a policy, or we can't have the bathrooms in the classrooms. So I'm just asking that you guys actually take a look at that when you're reviewing that and get some guidance from legal. That concerns me.
I will confirm that,
I know you and I had some conversation
did.
about it, but
I think it's a poorly written definition.
it is very poor, and so I don't want us to get into any
Absolutely.
issues, and I would like to make sure that we follow whatever policy we put in there, that we're actually gonna follow it, so if we can't do it, then we can't do it. So, thanks. I'll pass these on to you.
Thank you.
Were all the other, all your other questions were answered? They were kind of.
I'll pass it on to
I
Lori.
can, we have them, so I
You
can,
can.
well, I'll bring them to the committee as well.
Okay.
I found a couple misspellings,
There were a couple. That's our Neola person.
because it's what I do.
Yeah, the only question I had was on the religious instruction, being able to leave the building. It sounded like there was some coordination with the school, but, you know, I don't know to what extent that is in terms of, let's say a child is leaving at the same time, let's say every day, and it happens to be math.
So they can't. Our policy that we're putting in states that it cannot be during core instruction.
Core instruction.
And so it has to be during a time that they come there. We have to have a policy. We've had a policy for religious instruction. This is just coming out of a recent
Okay.
bill that we had to kind of update it. So they can't leave for during core instruction. If they leave during lunch, we have to provide them with the opportunity to purchase a lunch from us. So we're working through what that looks like as well. And obviously their parents who have to sign off on it. One thing that I insisted on is anyone who is taking our students or working with our students have a background check.
Yes, I saw
For our
that.
volunteer
Yeah, good.
policy, so.
Okay.
Okay, Board of Education, Business, A, LLB Resources Consulting Services, resolution to approve a consulting services agreement between the Riverside Local School District Board of Education and LLB Resources LLC at a cost of $250 per hour effective March 20th, 25 through March 19th, 2026. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say, I had the time this month to take a look and see what I could find. I could not find any professional profiles, I could not find company websites, couldn't find any publications or articles, nothing with a web search except the name, and then no professional association. So the person we're hiring, again, we can't find any information on. And also due to the current financial constraints of the district, I can back this. The proposed consultation rate is $250 per hour. We do employ a director of communications that does a great job, and he could perform these services for us if we tell him what we're looking for. So again, just concerned about the money we're spending when we do have people already hired in the district to do the work.
My concern also is that we don't have a stop on this proposal. It's whenever she decides she's finished. That's problematic for me.
Mr. McIntyre, I believe the contract's written that the board can disengage at any time.
That's correct, on 7 days' notice.
Okay. So we can disengage at any time if we're not satisfied with the services. And it's my understanding that each of the services will be noted in an invoice sent to the treasurer. Is that correct? That's noted in the contract?
That's correct, yeah.
So to be clearly identified what we're paying for, and while we have a great communications director, we're only reaching about 5,000 of the 26,000 hardworking taxpayers in the district, and we need to reach them all. So as we develop that program in conjunction with Nick, after that's completed, Nick will just take over and run the program, and this company will no longer be hired. They'll be fired at that point. So this is a short-term's relative. We don't know how long it'll take to develop that and communicate, but after that's done, it'll be done. So looking forward to reaching all the hardworking taxpayers. Right now it's about 5,000, and we're a little bit short. We're missing over 20,000 of the taxpayers. So we need to communicate with them, in my opinion, about how we're spending their money. I think that's very important. And also, we're going to be coming up to needing to put a levy out, an operating levy, because we're in deficit spending, and we will need to have an operating levy to pass to continue to operate as a normal school district. And I think if the people know how their monies are being used, how we're fixing the problems that have developed over the years, how we're solving overcrowdedness, how we're getting rid of trailers and putting kids in bricks and mortar, and doing a lot of things to promote the district for the education of the students. I think this is a very positive move for a relatively low amount of money. We could hire another company for a lot more money. They could be high profile, and we could spend a lot more for the same service. I don't think that's a good idea. I think we should get the most for each and every dollar that we spend.
Dr. Rottino, will you be able to give us regular weekly updates in your Friday packet on the status of this contract and what her progress is, please?
I will try my best.
Thank you.
Gary, can you take the roll, please?
Linda Grassi,
Nay.
Lori Kniske,
Nay.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Denise Brewster.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Board of Education business, B, Building Addition, Buckeye Elementary. The Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby approves moving forward with building an 8-classroom addition plus a gymnasium addition on Buckeye Elementary. And can I get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you.
So basically, I want to make sure the taxpayers understand that this is because we are going to most likely issue COPS financing and bonds to pay for this. It's unvoted millage. It's unvoted bond financing, which typically, if you're putting up facilities and you went out to the public and asked them for financing approval to sell bonds to pay for your facility improvements, you would be asking the voters for that. This is not being voted because we have the ability to do that without asking the public to do that. But again, I believe it is misguided since we can't really afford it, at least based on my expectations of what we need to be putting into this PI levy or PI forecast. We're putting the cart before the horse. So we're gonna vote to put on, move forward with putting on a building that we just don't really even know whether or not we can afford.
And you're talking about millage and unvoted on are you suggesting that this will be additional tax money paid by the taxpayers?
Eventually, when our PI levy runs out of money, yes, you're gonna have to ask them for additional dollars to pay for regular and recurring PI expenses. So you can spin that however you want.
Well, so just to be clear, for this item right here, do you believe taxpayers would be paying more taxes?
We'll be going into deficit spending in our PI fund, so we'll eventually get the money from somewhere.
if
We'll
you're
take the money from
mentioning-
we'll take the money from the general, and then we'll ask them for, what you just said, we'll ask them for a levy.
Yeah, so we're not taking money from the general fund, and in this, you mentioned millage and unvoted taxpayer money, so do you believe taxes are going up because of this item?
I didn't say that.
Okay, I just want to be clear, thank you. Anything else?
I just want to make a note, it's, we either do this or we keep the trailers.
For another
That's the bottom line.
for another 16 years?
Well, perhaps we should have had some conversation around that.
And went with what the district or the community and everybody put together instead of taking our plan their way, a different way. It would have solved the district problems instead of one area's problems.
Okay.
We didn't have that conversation at the board table on how we would proceed. It was brought to the table in August of last year, if I'm not mistaken, and there we have it, and it was passed 3-2, and now we're doing it. So we didn't have conversation about it. So I don't know what else to say about that. When we came to Buckeye, that project was put on at the last minute in December, I think it's December. It was voted on, passed 3-2, no conversation. So we have not had conversation about the finances and how we're going to fund all these things, and we're doing all that.
So I believe
Without having a
Riverview was in September, when we had a video board discussion, September 3rd in a meeting, if you want to go back and check that. Because you keep telling the public on your social media there was no discussion. And I also passed
5
out the
minutes.
rendering of that in the buildings and grounds, which you said there was nothing else. Yes, we did that. So we had a discussion at the board table. There was further work on it. It was passed out. You were an other person in the buildings and grounds committee. You received it. And you keep telling people there was no discussion.
I was floored when that was passed out. Where did that come
You
from?
may have been floored, but you have been misleading the public, and I would ask you to stop it.
I am
Because
not
you
misleading the
had
public.
asked people to come and speak out loudly. That was probably the worst board meeting that the Riverside Local School District ever had, so much so.
No.
So-
I've been the worst, trust me.
So much so that, excuse me, so much so that Ms. Brewster had to be escorted out to her car by the sheriff's deputy because it was unsafe in here. Okay, and that didn't stop there. It followed up at the next meeting. And the sheriff's deputy stepped forward and he said, "It's not safe in here. I want to escort you to your car in the next meeting." Okay, that's unacceptable behavior, and you're causing that, and I'm asking you to stop it. Okay, Gary, can you call the roll?
Lori Kniske,
Nay.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi.
Nay.
Motion carried. Board of Education Business, C, Owner's Representative Authority, Riverside School Projects. Be it resolved by the Riverside Local School District Board of Education that the Riverside Local School District's duly appointed owner's representative, i.e. RFC Contracting, Roger Riachi, and that the Riverside Local School District's administration is hereby authorized to direct the Riverside Local School District's duly appointed architect, TDA Architecture, and construction manager, Cleveland Construction, Inc., for the RHS campus and Riverview building projects regarding scheduling and other matters of general project administration within the scope of the board-approved contracts with TDA Architecture and Cleveland Construction, Inc., for the RHS campus and Riverview building projects. The Riverside Local School District's duly appointed owner's representative, i.e. RFC Contracting, Roger Riachi, shall consult as needed with the Riverside Local School District Board of Education President regarding scheduling and other matters of general project administration within the scope of the board-approved contracts with TDA Architecture and Cleveland Construction, Inc. for the RHS campus and Riverview building projects. The Board of Education hereby reserves to itself the sole and exclusive authority to consider and approve amendments and other modifications to the board-approved contracts with TDA Architecture and Cleveland Construction, Inc. for the RHS campus and Riverview building projects. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Plenty. So I have an extreme problem with the and not that's in section 1. Riverside Local School District's duly appointed owner's representative, i.e. RFC Contracting, Roger Riashi, and not the Riverside Local School District's administration, is hereby authorized to direct, et cetera, et cetera. I am going to ask why it says and not when it could have said in conjunction with, and it would have sounded a whole lot more collaborative, but we decided not to do that, and we decided to say and not. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that. That is like showing such a lack of respect for the individuals that we employ in high-level positions to do this work. It's insulting. I'm insulted for them.
Well, I'm sure there was no disrespect intended.
Well, there is, though.
And so I would suggest that, Mr. McIntyre, I would suggest there's no disrespect intended in the wording in this contract. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. So
So then why can't we change it? So then I propose that we change that, instead of saying and not.
well, it's
Because
not-
that means we're not going to consult with them. When you sat here and heard Roger say for himself that he is not going to not do that, he's going to consult with the administration. So why is it saying and not?
So this is not meant to carve out anyone. It includes all participation and communication.
I'm sorry, this says and not.
Okay.
So if they choose not to do that, then they don't have to, because that's what this resolution says. So why
Okay.
don't we just say in conjunction with?
I think what this comes down to is, this is for authorized to direct the Riverside Local School District's duly appointed architect and construction manager, building projects regarding scheduling and other matters of direct general project administration. So essentially, what he's doing is, we're using one voice to communicate with the architect and the contractor, and that one voice is our representative. You know, if we include the administration, then they may be getting two different messages, mixed messages, and that leads to confusion. So if we let our representative be the sole voice in communication with them, official decisions, then I think that's a prudent thing to do.
So why wouldn't our official voice be our superintendent? Instead, we are turning it around in section 2 and making that person the board president, who's not here on a daily basis. And our superintendent should be directing when those projects are scheduled, knowing the school schedules, knowing what's going on in schools. That's his job. It's ridiculous.
Yes, their job is the education end of things, and
I know his job is
our
everything.
owner's
His job is the
representative,
CEO of this
his
district
job
and to
is
run
for the
this district. That is a
contracting end of
business
things.
decision. That is a business decision. He should be making that decision. For us to sit here and insult the intelligence of the two individuals that are sitting down
I
at the end of
certainly
this
didn't
table.
take, I certainly
will tell you,
didn't
I'm
take
not
it
finished
any way
speaking.
that we were insulting anybody.
It is.
You know,
You are insulting their professional credibility right here.
I don't read it that way.
Well, I'm sorry, but I believe that the entire public does. I do.
Well, then you're projecting.
Well, you project a lot of things, and I'm projecting that, and you're absolutely right. And I would suggest that then change it to in conjunction with. If that is not your intention, then change the words.
So I think we're going to cut the conversation at this point. Gary, can you call the roll?
Right. Because the answer is we're not going to do that.
We're not just going to say the same thing over and over again. Can you please take the roll?
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis Keeney,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Absolutely never.
Lori Kniske.
Nay.
Motion carried. Board of Education business. The authorization for change orders, Riverside School projects. Be it resolved by the Riverside Local School District Board of Education that the Riverside Local School District's duly appointed owner's representative, i.e. RFC Contracting, Roger Riachi, is hereby authorized to consider and approve necessary change orders in connection with each building project, i.e. RHS Campus and Riverview, in an amount not to exceed $50,000 per change order for each project. Necessary change orders subject to consideration and approval under this resolution shall not exceed available funds in the contingency fund established in connection with each project and shall comply with any certification of available funds required by law. The Board of Education hereby reserves to itself the sole and exclusive authority to consider and approve change orders in the amount of $50,000 or more per change order for each project. The Riverside Local School District's duly appointed owner's representative is authorized to sign any necessary change orders authorized by this resolution. The Board of Education directs the treasurer, CFO to include and report any necessary change orders considered and approved by the Riverside Local School District's duly appointed owner's representative under this resolution to the Board of Education in monthly construction budget reports in connection with each project. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Mr. McIntyre, when the contract is written, if there's something that does not correspond or fit into this resolution, the contract supersedes it, right?
Yes, yeah, I mean, these are just adjustments in the amount of work that's done under the GMP, which will come to the board and will be approved by the board. And as a part of that GMP, there will be a contingency fund established to cover those sort of unforeseen or unanticipated conditions that might require the utilization of some of those funds. That's really why contingency funds are established. And so any approval of a change order under this resolution would have to fit within that contingency fund. So that's already been approved by the board. So the answer is yes.
So really, there's really limited value to this resolution in the first place.
It really just allows the construction project to proceed efficiently.
Right, so there's no delays and slowdowns because the owner's rep needs to make decisions on the spot sometimes. And it's important to have, this is just normal procedure. And spoke with Roger about it, and he certainly wanted to have this ability. Gary, can you call the roll?
Dennis Key,
Aye.
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Nay.
Lori Kniske,
Nay.
Scott Fishel.
Aye. Motion carried. Board of Education update. Any updates?
I was just going to say, I had the opportunity to go to the senior dinner and the play, and it was amazing. It was truly a delight. The kids did a great job with the play, and they are so impressive when they serve dinner, and they're so polite. And I brought a guest, and you know, it was just, they make such a great impression, so thank you. And then the 75th anniversary, it was great to be able to see, especially in the media center, and I thanked Mrs. Jamie McIntyre, but I know other people were involved. All the displays, the yearbooks, there were logs, which was the newspaper, and people brought in things that they had on tables. So it was great to see all that, and it sparked a lot of conversation. Even if you weren't in that class, you still knew this person or that person, and it was really a great time. I did see a great display as well of, you know, our programming that was more toward the back there, and I saw a lot of people looking at that as well, so that was good. The syrup by the lake, or by Lamouth, was incredible. I mean, you know, it's like a little bit of a connoisseur of that, and they did such a great job, including the bottling, the labeling, everything, so it was really nice. And then I just wanted to mention the loss of a former staff member. She was principal at Leroy Elementary, Claudia Rolfe. She recently passed away, and she was a very dedicated educator, and, you know, she'll be missed by many.
Thank you for that.
I would just like to say that I will be attending the Network for Public Education National Conference in Columbus on April 4th through April 6th. I will be attending sessions on vouchers here at Ohio. I'm very interested to see what they have to say. They have a number of sessions. I looked at the session list, religious instruction release. Since it's a national conference, getting perspectives from people outside of Ohio I think will be really, really helpful. They have some really, really phenomenal speakers for their sessions, as well as their keynote speakers. I think it's going to be really valuable. I know the State Teacher of the Year it always kills me because his name is Kurt Russell. It just makes me laugh, but he's going to be speaking. So I will be attending that. I'll report out at our next meeting. I just wanted to let you know that I'm very interested in hearing what they have to say at that session.
And where's that conference?
It's in Columbus.
Columbus.
And the dates on that?
April 4th through 6th.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Next meeting announcement. Buildings and Grounds, March 31st, 7:30 a.m. Policy Committee, April 2nd, 7:30 a.m. Buckeye Ad Hoc Committee meeting, April 2nd, 8 a.m. Special meeting, April 7th, 5:30 p.m. Curriculum and Programming Committee meeting, April 15th, 7:30 a.m. Finance and Personnel, April 17th, 8 a.m. Buildings and Grounds, April 22nd, 7:30 a.m. Board of Education meeting, April 24th, 6 p.m. And we set one more, didn't we?
We set a work session,
I'm looking for it.
April 28th.
April 20th, that'll be after the next board meeting.
Yes.
So we have to announce that, okay. And so we will adjourn to executive session. Be it resolved that the Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby adjourns to executive session at 9:11 p.m. to discuss personnel matters relating to the employment of public officials, discipline negotiations, and security arrangements, and the Riverside Local School District Board of Education hereby designates all matters discussed in this executive session as strictly confidential and finds that this designation is warranted because of the status of these matters and the need to preserve confidentiality to properly conduct the business of this Board of Education. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Gary, can you call the roll?
Denise Brewster,
Aye.
Linda Grassi,
Aye.
Lori Kaminsky,
Aye.
Scott Fishel,
Aye.
Dennis King.
Aye.
Motion carried. We will adjourn to executive session.
Mike?